Farrell has rung the changes for the second Lions test against the Wallabies in Melbourne. Some are forced, others unforced. Bundi Aki comes in at 12 and Hugh Jones remains at 13, but both those decisions are due to injuries.
Sione has a little bit of a tight hamstring there, so that influences that. Gary Ringrose, Hugh comes in. Gary, was actually selected, and unfortunately in training today he's had to pull out. That's unfortunate for Gary.
So what does this tell us about the upcoming test? Well, here's our reporter down under, Alfie Reynolds.
First of all, I think when you look at the bench options, I mentioned Ellis Genge amongst the replacements, Jack Morgan being named there, Owen Farrell coming on, Blair Kinghorn coming on. I think there's a part of it that the Lions had the first test pretty much wrapped up after 50 minutes, but they did drop off in the last 20 of that. So I think Andy Farrell wants more from his bench, wants more of an impact.
Elsewhere, he's got his move to Barcelona, but what will Marcus Rashford do there? Former Barca midfielder Bolo Zenden says it's a crazy good opportunity for someone who tumbled down the levels so quickly at Old Trafford.
If this doesn't ignite the engine again, I don't know what will. So I'm definitely sure that he will give it all. We've seen glimpses of it when he was at Villa. I've also heard things like that he was a professional on and off the pitch, that he was doing his defensive work, that he was, well, living as a pro.
And can England survive another Spanish Inquisition in the Euros final this Sunday? They may have the scars of the World Cup final loss, but as Adrian Durham told us, recent history makes for better reading.
The last two games between England and Spain this year, Spain beat England 2-1 in Barcelona. I was there a month ago. England were 1-up at half-time. It was quite a tight game in the end. A little bit of magic won it for Spain. And before that, England beat Spain 1-0. Jess Park with the only goal at a packed Wembley. So it's been pretty tight in the games. Player for player, you'd say Spain are a lot better. They've got more Ballon d'Or contenders, if you like. But England will feel confident from the performances against Spain.
And make sure you tune in when it might just come home again on Sunday afternoon, live on talkSPORT. And all your transfer news is at talksport.com.
Good morning, everybody, and you're listening to Danny Kelly and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT. So popular last week, they brought the old band back together again. It's virtually a tour now. So Marcus Rashford is finally at Barcelona. He says he's found his home. Will the Catalan club be the environment which sees him excel once again? Meanwhile, Ugo Ekitike joins Liverpool as their spending surpasses 200 million, with more to come. If the top side in the country is spending that kind of money, what will it mean for the rest of the division? Plus, is golf facing an existential crisis? I think this is about tennis, this story. Is tennis facing an existential crisis? Yannick Sinner right to reinstate his fitness coach. And it's Thursday, so we'll chat boxing in the final hour. I'm delighted to say Spencer Oliver will be in with us, so we'll get some, with all due respect, Simon, expertise on the case.
Some in-ring expertise.
This is Danny Kelly, and the voice you can hear there, Simon Jordan, on talkSPORT. Yeah, welcome one, welcome all, welcome everybody to Talk Sport. Me and Simon Jordan. Simon, I know it's the holiday season and all that, but this is the best they can do. Drag me and you back together.
Oh, I don't know about that, mate. You were the lightning rod for me being inflicted upon the nation.
Well, as I said at the start of last week's show, there was a time when I was kind of, because Simon and I knew each other a little bit before the broadcasting, I was kind of training you, but
You were?
as I say, the fact that you've won so many awards since I stopped being with you speaks volumes. That's all I'm saying. I may have been holding you back.
You're the Gene Wilder in this young Frankenstein incarnation.
Oh, what a film.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. A riot is an ugly thing. I won't do that. Literally, is there a film? Sorry, forget about the sport now. We're on to the important stuff now. I could recite every line of Young Frankenstein. If you put a gun to my head, I could recite every... Is there a film where you can recite every... Don't say a silent film.
I think I can do Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Really?
I think I can do Scent of a Woman.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for me, it'd be the Maltese Falcon and Young Frankenstein. I can do every single line. A certain amount of trouble, I think I can. I don't mind. Okay, listen, Marcus Rashford, speaking of a certain kind of trouble, Marcus Rashford has, I hope, it looks like he's ended, what could you call it, 2 years of decline, dissatisfaction, however you want to put it.
With the risk of cultural appropriation, Mexican standoff between the club and him.
Yeah, an amazing move for him to go to Barcelona.
Remarkable.
I'll get on to his wages because the part that you'll understand better than me. First of all, he said in his arrival speech that he said, "I already feel at home." One or two people have kind of said, "Is that a slur on Manchester United?" But he did praise Manchester United as well during the whole thing. Yeah, and I think it was sometimes we're in danger of over-reading these statements, but
and sometimes you're not.
No,
sometimes there's hidden meanings about it. I mean, look, he feels at home, and then sooner rather than later he gets served an eviction notice. I don't know. Look, I mean, Marcus Rashford, we should lament to some extent the decline of a talent that was never at the level, as I said yesterday, that people put him onto. They put him onto being a world-class footballer. I didn't ever think he was. I think he was a very good footballer. And so then they built him up to a level, and then they proceeded to whittle him down or judge him by a set of standards that were unfair. Now, for whatever reason, his career has gone off the rails. I think it's a lot to do with his off-the-field activities and distractions and having far too much disposable income and far too much free time to deploy it, and losing the energy and focus and the culture of United also helping in that. And I think it's a very good move for him. I think he's very fortunate to get it. Yep. And I think it's reflective of where this Catalonia side are right now, that the economics dictate that they can afford to take a risk on certain proportions of his salary and don't have to deal with the transfer fees. That's the overall picture. But I think that he will excel.
I hope so.
No, but I think he will, because I think he's motivated by after different factors, and one of them is an upcoming World Cup. And whenever there's a tournament in play, Marcus Rashford, without wanting to be overly cynical, seems to find the zeitgeist for how to play football again, seems to find his mojo and get himself into a situation where he's worth something to the people that might want him to be worth something. So the only challenge for him is how does he punch his way into this side? Now, I know there's an argument that Lewandowski has gone past his best, but I don't see him ousting Lewandowski. I don't see him ousting either one of the two wingers in Rafinha and Lamine Yamal. No. So it's interesting to see how he's going to be played out and whether this I feel at home mentality is going to find itself into his psyche when he's parked on the bench. Yeah, you're right. First, he's got to do is get into the team and get registered, of course, because one of the reasons Nico Williams didn't go. They'll do it. They've had this problem before, haven't they? Well, exactly, and that's why Danny Olmo missed half a season because they said we'll do it, and there's a world of difference between we'll do it and getting it done. There must be some form of assurances to Rashford, unless the optics of this move are as appealing to him as the reality of it, because it is a win, isn't it? I mean, let's have it right. No, we shouldn't hide away from that. Whatever the appearances are, whether he becomes a backup for Lewandowski or finds his way into the team, and whatever complications there may be, for Marcus Rashford to be able to say on his CV, I went from Manchester United, with all due respect to Aston Villa, to Barcelona. Yeah. That looks great. Even if it doesn't work out, it looks great. I'm interested. I can't quite get my head around, and I don't think I got much of an answer from Alex Cook the other day, about how they've managed to create a scenario where the wages are being compromised in a certain way, that ultimately Barcelona aren't picking up all the wages because the wages have been reduced at their source. And at their source, by that I mean Manchester United. I asked this before when I was doing immense preparation with our producer. It seems, because I said to him, so Barcelona are picking up all the wages, but he's taking a pay cut. Correct. Right?
So that must be a separate contract, because when he goes back to Manchester United, they're not going to settle.
The only thing I can assume is they've done some form of deed of variation, and I don't quite know how that's done on a fixed term contract, but I'm sure it's not beyond the wit of man. If you can dance around the league's governance, if you're Leicester City, by finding a Bermuda Triangle to disappear in, which means you're not governed by the Football League or the Premier League, it can't be beyond the wit of man to find a variation that enables them. And what I like about that is, to some extent, is that Rashford's been put, because one of the things I said about 6 weeks ago, in order to get the Rashford deal done, people are going to have to take haircuts. And by that I mean the player too.
Yeah.
And it can't just be a one-way transaction, because I would imagine that United are going to dig in and say, you're the architect of some of this, you're complicit, you're the one that wanted to go and do interviews with Henry Winter telling everyone you wanted to go out the door, you're the one you're the one whose form has been challenging, hence the reason why we are where we are. So you're going to have to be part of the solution. And the fact that everyone's been a grown-up and found a solution, not ideal, because United would probably rather sell him, but if there's real guarantees, so I imagine there must be, Dan, about Barcelona's obligation to buy him. The interesting thing will be is if there is a real enforceable obligation. If he plays 15 games or scores X amount of goals, it triggers the absolute obligation. But then again, if you're United and all of a sudden he plays really well for Barcelona, you don't want this bleeding 26 million deal. You want something far bigger than that, because his inherent worth will be bigger.
I think there may be a world in which they just want him out the door now.
I think that's probably right.
And you'll take a few million pounds.
Take a few.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, Alexandro Garnacho has sort of said, "Well done, off we go," kind of thing, which is fine. He's a teammate of his. And the question,
well, he would do, wouldn't he? He'd be running around with a Barcelona shirt with Rashford on the back next one.
The question is, whether both that Rashford's behaviour, from what we know of it, and Amorim's reaction shows, what Ruben Amorim has had to be dealing with. But I wouldn't say, up to a point, yeah. But really, Manchester United is single, and we'll get onto their amazing plan to charge the season ticket holders thousands and thousands. Yeah. It's the return of debentures. I said this. Arsenal had that debenture scheme. Yeah. Really, the problem with Manchester United is that at bottom, they keep making bad decisions about footballers. They keep bringing in players that they're paying too much for, who do not contribute enough in the football team. That's the bottom line with Manchester United, so I can see anyway.
And some of it is that they bought the right players that have managed them well. And made the wrong decisions with them.
Or the environment hasn't been right for the players.
I think it's probably a combination of the three. I think that the selection process has been flawed. They've had to pay a premium for some of the players that they've bought. They've then not handled them very well, and the players themselves haven't covered themselves with glory. No. I think Jadon Sancho comes to mind.
It's a perfect storm, isn't it? Brand new football club, particularly a big one.
That's because the culture of the football club isn't right, and you can blame all that. I would suspect that because the Glazers are such a vilified species, that whatever they touch will be considered in a certain way. But I don't imagine that the culture of Manchester City is set by Sheikh Mansour. He's not there.
It's the manager and the people around
other people
him.
But then, of course, the recruitment of these people is by Mansour and his acolytes. And so in this instance, I never had Ed Woodward. I always thought that Ed Woodward could get a credit and debit column looking very good, but ultimately making decisions about the business that he was in for football and building a football team wasn't his forte. And so you lost 4 or 5 years in that space where Woodward didn't achieve the things that they could and should have achieved, and they lost their momentum, and City and others grabbed it. Now we'll see, if people like Barada are what they're supposed to be. This is an important time now for United. Yeah. They've all nailed their colours to the mast. They've shuffled out the bluffer in Dave Brailsford. They're reselecting their pack. And it'll be an interesting season, because Ruben Amorim, if he starts poorly, it will be zeroing in on him.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no breathing space here.
Yeah, and notable as well that United made a late bid, according to some pretty specific reports, for Ugo Ekitike as well. Now, it's not, to me, people will say, oh, that shows that Liverpool are so far ahead of Manchester United. Manchester United still carry huge gravity in the world of football. But if you're making late bids for people, it tells me you're not properly prepared. You haven't got your ducks in a row for the transfer window. Although opportunities do come up, you could say.
The logic would suggest if you're making a late bid for that fella, why weren't you buying Gyökeres, given the link between him and Amorim?
Yep.
Because what we're being told and led to believe is...
And for 60% of the money, and proven.
And the economics of it are that you can't do it without Rasmus Højlund. And of course, that's the same economics that led Jim Ratcliffe to give an interview to everybody but us about the idea that they had no money. because ultimately someone might ask him a question that was a bit more pointed in this environment.
Well, as we'll report later on in the show, he's getting some more money now, Sir Jim Ratcliffe. God bless him, because he was down to his last pair of decent shoes.
7 billion, yeah.
By turning the Manchester United supporters upside down and shaking them to see what else he can get out of their pockets. You're listening to Kelly and Jordan here on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go. So you're listening to Kelly and Jordan and Kelly. There's only two of us, but we haven't yet worked out contractually how the name of the band should be. Simon, we will get onto rugby union sometime this morning, of course, with the second test between the British and Irish Lions and Australia coming up in front of what will be a record crowd for a Lions match, because the MCG, the fabled MCG, which I sometimes think is like a soulless bowl to me, but I've not played on the sacred sword, shall we say? Will be coming up on Saturday. But just to go back to Manchester United, and overall the way the world has changed. In your day, tell me, because nowadays obviously you've got data experts and data analysts, and then I presume that whether it's Ekatike or Mateus Cunha or Brian Mbeumo, the people who actually bought Manchester United, I suppose the recruitment committee and ultimately the manager probably has to nod it through and say, yeah, he's a good player, he's got to come.
Yeah, I mean,
in your day, it was lit. Sorry, can I ask you this? I hate to say in your day because you're still very much up to date with the game, but in those days, I think it was you and the manager would sit down and say, what should we do about this? We need a centre forward?
Yeah, to some extent. Ultimately, a manager would come with his shopping list of requirements, and then it would be.
I bet that was a great meeting.
It was
with
delightful.
You.
I always enjoyed those. Wonderful they were, especially in January's, where it was always the bastion of bad business, wasn't it?
And you were getting charged 25% extra
and
for
watching
each player.
agents sitting there just rubbing their hands together, as they do now with the release clause opportunities that are in the space. Look, I mean, like everything else, things evolve, and it's really important that it does, because this idea that you buy players from videos or from scouting networks that have reported back, and managers that have got a whim or a wish, rather than, you wouldn't buy a house that way.
Nope.
You're now buying, I'm not suggesting that players are buildings. I'm suggesting that you make sure that you do your diligence. You make sure that you don't have a Tonali situation where you don't know the background.
Sure.
You make sure that you have players that are fit for purpose, so you don't have a Jadon Sancho situation, so you're dealing with the psychological challenges that a player may have. Now, you can never eradicate all of the risk. What you can do is make sure that you do it properly to minimise some of the risk. So you look at it now, lots is being made of data. At the end of the day, if you put garbage into a system, you get garbage out. So the data models are predicated upon the intelligence that goes into it. And I was speaking to Dougie Friedman the other day, who I admire very much.
It's been a real success at this.
And Dougie's built a 58-point program which evaluates every aspect of a footballer and makes him almost fit for purpose for the requirements that you specifically have of this player. So you're not buying a surprise. You're not saying, hang on a second, in the fortunate world of Newcastle, you can turn a centre forward from Joe Linton into a centre midfield player. That's an added bonus, but you bought Linton for a certain requirement. So with that in mind, it gives you slightly more confidence in the things that you're doing. Does it exclude and preclude managers? Possibly. The eye test is always a massive thing that managers should be involved in. But this idea now that managers should be anywhere, I've always railed against it, not because it's about controlling and compartmentalising, but I'm not a football manager and they're not economists or financiers. So you don't really want football managers anywhere near the money, because it also conflicts them. Because if they're part of a player's package and the player knows they're part of their package and the player hasn't got precisely what he wanted, I always felt that conflicted the relationship with the manager to some extent.
Yeah.
So the idea of people knocking on the door of Bob Paisley and Brian Clough and people of that era is gone now. The scale and circumstances around football are far too big, and it's also open to far too much abuse. But going to your original point, when you look at people like Tony Bloom and Matthew Burnham, it's no surprise that they look at things the way they do. They're actuates.
This was my next question. Is it any surprise that the two best clubs, apparently, at picking up players using data, have come out of the gambling industry, where having the right data is the difference between making a profit and losing money?
Of course. I mean, they are, to some extent, they have actuarism in their thinking, aren't they? They're assessing the probabilities.
For the more stupid listener, not me, of course, what is actuarism?
Well, it's about probabilities, isn't it? It's about evaluating the likely outcomes. So an actuary looks at certain things, takes all data and forms a likely outcome and balances it upon probability. And that's how it
They normally work what insurance companies work. That's what
underwriters are specifically utilised for that. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to underwrite footballers.
No.
But there is more thinking behind it. And then you look at those models at Brighton and Brentford and you think, well, it's easier to make mistakes in those spaces because A, the glare of the failings that you have isn't so evident, and B, the scale of investment doesn't seem to be so significant. But it's relative to the football club. But it's like Palace with Muniz, without breaking any confidences. I think there was a battle for Dougie to convince certain people to sign the boy Muniz for £6 or £7 million. Right. There wouldn't be requirements for any convincing now, would they?
No, they wouldn't.
Because the boy is an absolute revelation there.
Star.
So it's a variety of different things that make decisions. But United, I think, has been I think they've been lazy. I think they've been unprofessional. And I think they've taken the path of least resistance, and they think that money fills the problem rather than looking at the outcomes of the money. I think they've paid taxes in terms of the United profile. When you look at people like Alexis Sanchez that chose to go to Manchester United over Man City, primarily because Man United were paying more money, to my mind tells you where Man United were. They were no longer a destination for success. They were a destination for to get paid. And of course you have to have both.
Let me ask you another question, because I've heard you say, and I don't disagree with you, Manchester United still has a great deal of gravity in the world of football, and it's it's very attractive to footballers. Yeah. As their current malaise, if I might be so strong, and of course if they'd won in Bilbao, they didn't. If they'd won in Bilbao, this would all look slightly different. And because they have won occasional trophies, haven't they?
Of course they have.
How long can Manchester United rely on their being the biggest club in the world, that badge? Because, Sunderland used to be that club in England. Or has the world changed now, where your global standing gives you much more sustainability, if you like, with being these huge brands?
Well, I think it's carried them for the last 12 years to some extent. And I think
since Alex Ferguson.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And eventually you are going to be, because people gravitate towards winners. If you've got your indigenous fan base, and then you've got your global audience, and your global audience will be drawn to the winners in the room. And if a generation passes and the winners have changed, and the deck chair has been arranged on the Titanic in this instance for United's analysis, then you look at the cities of the world. I always used to compare, and we did this on the shows that we did. We used the analogy of Man United being Ferrari and Man City being Red Bull. And that is now changing because Man City have become serial winners. The next generation of football fans that are watching Man City around the world are saying, well, what about this Man United? And Man United are disappearing back into the Brian Greenhoff, Jimmy Greenhoff, Stuart Pearson era of being a club that's got prestige and profile and heritage and legacy, but no achievements. And the world is about achievements, and specifically when you've made the sport as global as it's now become.
Talk to me then, and sorry, Manchester United fans, I don't want you to, I know there's so many of you out there, do not turn your radios off. Talk to me then about how Manchester United have dealt with the last 12 years post-Ferguson versus the way Liverpool, seemingly by organic management growth, have managed to keep up. I know they've got American owners and all the rest of it, but they haven't made the mistakes that Manchester United have made, largely.
In the Premier League,
they had a genius manager that helped as well. And here they are, champions of England by a mile last year.
But in the Premier League era, United were the poster boys. And when the Premier League landed on our landscape, out of the ether of the ideas of David Dean and Rick Parry and Alan Sugar and Noel White and whoever else we can think of were the orchestrators of it, out of that ether came Manchester United. Bang! No surprise that when the Premier League launched, the first 5 Premier League titles were won by Manchester United. And you look at the growth of Liverpool during that period, from something like £40 million turnover in 1992 to £50 million turnover in 1997, where United went from 40 million to 100 million and kept on growing. And a lot of that was to do with people like David Gill. It was to do with Kenyon and his ability to get commercial deals, but it was also to do with the fact they had an elite manager in there. Now, in recent years, in the last half decade, Liverpool have reawoken, and it's come at the time when United have declined and kept on declining, and football's always cyclical, isn't it? Otherwise Preston would still be at the top of the pyramid.
Or Sunderland, as I say. Yeah.
So it's for United now in this global game that's become so significant to reawaken themselves and start getting best in class back into their environments. Now, whether that's Ruben Amorim at the management level or whether it's Omar Barada in the boardroom, we'll see. Jim Radcliffe, I think, has not cut through the way people thought we'd done. I find what Jim's done very strange. He's put himself in the way of all the brickbats. The Glazers must be going, fantastic. You want to be a Shield, you want to take all that crap, you take it, because he's made himself very unpopular with some of the things he's had to do, I think.
Also, excuse me for saying this because maybe I lack vision, showing drawings of this huge new stadium with a spire that's supposed to dominate as far as Merseyside.
Yeah.
This is all fine and dandy. Get this thing sorted out on the pitch first.
Well, yeah. I mean, some people say it's all fur cut and knickers, but ultimately it's part of the proposition, isn't it? They know they've got to evolve Manchester United, and part of it is a stadium. They're looking across at what Daniel's done with Spurs, looking at this wonderful stadium that's being enabled left, right and centre, and thinking, this is what we've got to do. But the irony of it is, in one breath, you've got Jim Radcliffe sitting down, like I said earlier on, saying, please, Gov, we've got no money. And we nearly ran out in November. In the next breath, he's telling you he's going to build a £2.5 billion stadium.
They're building the Taj Mahal in Salford. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, listen. Let's take another break. We're back very, very soon. You're listening to Simon Jordan and me, Danny Kelly. We're very pleased to have you along for the ride. And tomorrow, in an absolute break tradition, and possibly because of my presence, Simon will be doing the Friday show as well. Imagine the thrill of that.
Farrell has rung the changes for the second Lions test against the Wallabies in Melbourne. Some are forced, others unforced.
Sione has a little bit of a tight hamstring there, so that influences that. Gary Ringrose, Hugh comes in. Gary, was actually selected, and unfortunately in training, he's had to pull out.
So what does this tell us about the upcoming test? Well, here's our reporter down under, Alfie Reynolds.
The Lions had the first test pretty much wrapped up after 50 minutes, but they did drop off in the last 20 of that. So I think Andy Farrell wants more from his bench, wants more of an impact.
Elsewhere, he's got his move to Barcelona, but what will Marcus Rashford do there? Former Barca midfielder Bolo Zenden says it's a crazy good opportunity for someone who tumbled down the levels so quickly at Old Trafford.
If this doesn't ignite the engine again, I don't know what will. So I'm definitely sure that he will give it all.
And can England survive another Spanish Inquisition in the Euros final this Sunday? They may have the scars of the World Cup final loss, but as Adrian Durham told us, recent history makes for better reading.
The last two games between England and Spain this year, Spain beat England 2-1 in Barcelona. I was there a month ago. England were 1-up at half-time. It was quite a tight game in the end. A little bit of magic won it for Spain. And before that, England beat Spain 1-0. Jess Park with the only goal at a packed Wembley. So it's been pretty tight in the games.
And all your transfer news is at talkSPORT.com.
This week, talkSPORT has been asking, what is the nation's second sport? Now, we know football reigns supreme, especially here at talkSPORT, but what sport is the next best thing and why? Whether it's boxing, cricket, rugby, darts or MMA, these sports need your vote. If you'd like to join the discussion, just head to the dugout at talksport.com/dugout or via the talkSPORT app. It's been the talk of the office, and some talkSPORT names have been throwing their weight behind their favourite sports.
A lot of people ask me, Alan Brazil, why do you love horse racing? I go back to when I was a kid at Ipswich Town when we were invited over to Newmarket. Charles St George, who was a big Lloyd's underwriter, used to invite us to the Craven meeting at his summer house. It was magic. Lester Piggott was there, Pat Edry was there, Stevie Cawthon, and the champagne and caviar was out. I want a bit of this, I remember saying to myself. And we go to all the Newmarket meetings then. There was Ascot, then there was Monday nights at Windsor, the glorious Goodwood. It's just magic, and it's not just about having a bet. It's going down, watch them work in the mornings in the summer when there was no football training. At 5 o'clock, used to get out of bed, get in the car, go down, first light. Absolute stunning. Clive Britton used to look after us. And I just love the people, real nice people. It is the sport of kings and queens, but at the same time, when you get the bug, it's hard to get rid of, and I love it.
Yeah, so head to the dugout on the talkSPORT app or via the website on talksport.com/dugout to sign up and join the discussion. Fun prizes are also given away every month, and if you join now, you'll automatically be put into the next draw. Over 18s only, terms and conditions apply. You've got until 9 a.m. on Monday morning, so get voting.
Where are you on that argument? Don't tell me bloody cycling.
Not cycling. No. I'll tell you what, we'll do a bit more of it later on, because this links to the next door. I'd love to know, and it's amazing how, by living in a country that's just 300 miles to the west, how the lineup is so completely different. Hello, horse racing. We heard that Alan Brazil's favourite sport is horse racing. Well, the world of horse racing has been hit by the government's plans to change taxation around gambling. To explain all this to us now, we're joined by horse racing correspondent, golf correspondent, too, such brilliant work at the weekend, Rupert Bell. Hello, Rupert.
Morning, Danny. Morning, Simon.
Morning.
Listen, explain what's happening here. As I understand it, the standard taxation on gambling, let's say you're in a casino, is 21%, but for horse racing and dog racing, it remains at 15%. That's about to change, and the authorities who look after particularly horse racing think it will be calamitous.
Well, it could easily be, because the government thinks that they should try and bring everything into line at 21%, which includes all the online casino, which is a very different beast, racing would say, to what their sport is about, because the racing levy helps to employ a huge number of people within the rural community. Racing is a huge industry, and if suddenly through the levy because bookmakers, if they're suddenly finding they're going to have to pay 21% on their betting through racing, then they're going to look at cutting back costs. And so racing is saying this could have an initial impact of 66 million, and MPs are being lobbied, and I know the Treasury Minister is looking at saying, right, what impact could this have? Could it have a knock-on effect? Because racing is a huge part of the rural fabric. You look at Newmarket and other major towns, and indeed I know that my local MP in Stratford-upon-Avon, she is saying that this shouldn't happen, because we are in, and she's a recently elected Liberal Democrat member, a very much racing community. Outside Stratford, we have Dan Skelton, Ollie Murphy, and numerous other yards and numerous other industries that are dependent on the racing industry. And it would have a knock-on effect. And actually, they're saying it could have a wider implication. Prize money, which is deemed as pretty poor outside the big meetings, and on a global scale, our prime prize money doesn't match Japan, Hong Kong, the Middle East, you name it, France, and even your Ireland. So we do have issues, and it's the rural community, once again, probably feeling that they're under attack again, as the government don't necessarily understand the impact that it would have on a wider industry. Yes, there may be need to look at the gambling rules and regulations, but we've also got credit checks on everybody. There's so much bureaucracy, and this would be another problem for racing to try and negotiate. So racing is trying to do its best to make sure this government, who, as we know, seem to be desperately short of money and are finding every way to raise money, that racing is trying to put its cause and case to say, look, please keep it as it is now, so that we can at least maintain the status quo going forward.
Rupert, I can hear the absolute passion and the belief in your voice, and I've no reason to doubt one scintilla of that. But in the 20-odd years I've been doing sports broadcasting, the racing industry has, from one way or another, always been, to use a phrase, pleading poverty. Is there a problem in this country with what racing is, what it represents, and what you say about the rural communities, and its financing? Why have they never reached an equilibrium where the thing washes its face in a way that's acceptable to everyone?
Well, I think one of the things you may be point is that sometimes the BHA hasn't always had its hand on the political tiller, and it hasn't actually got, in a way, got with the governments to make sure they fully understand the case for racing. Because, if you'd have poor owners depend on prize money. If the prize money, and you look at some of the prize money levels now, they compare to what was happening 30 years ago at times, and you think, well, that you're going to depend on people who've got spare cash to go racing. And so you've got to try and make sure that it is a whole approach. And sometimes racing does have a problem, as a lot of factions within the sport, and it is very, very frustrating. So I absolutely understand where you're coming from. And yes, when you look at the high end, this weekend, Ascot, and they're racing for, a huge amount of money for the King George, you probably say, well, what's the problem? It's at the grassroots level. It's employing the farriers, the stable, people who work within the stables, and the knock-on effect and the number of people who benefit from the sport. And racing may have been a little, had some internal issues to try and sort out, and maybe they've had their eye off the ball. But this is a crossroads moment for the sport. There's no two ways about it. If the tax goes in, brought into line, and people might say, well, casino, well, what's the difference? You're betting. It's a very different thing. casino, clearly, an online thing, that's all generated by a computer. Racing is a very different beast. And you actually might have to go back to 50 years ago when they brought in bookmakers and everything was run by the tote. And ever since then, you look at France, it's a tote-based system. And that's why their prize money is high, but no one goes racing. We have a very different beast. It's the second most attended spectator sport throughout the country, if you look at over the year, behind football. So it does have a huge part to play within the fabric of the British society. All the race courses, 59 of them, I think it is, have a part to play within some rural communities. Obviously, in all parts of the country, benefit in some way. The hospitality industry is a huge, racing provides a lot of work, say at Cheltenham and other big meetings. So that racing does have an important part to play within the sporting fabric of this country, and this may, down the line, have an impact which might have a long-term progression downwards for the sport of racing and marginalise it, in many people's eyes, even more.
Rupert, I mean, it's clear to me that the racing authorities should employ you as their ambassador towards the government. And I mean that, obviously, the way you talk about it. Just without being apocalyptic, be honest. If this was to go through, I hear about unemployment, hundreds, maybe even 1,000 people. But what would be the change in the racing landscape? Would we have less than 59 courses? Would we have less meetings? Would less than 59 courses be a terrible thing?
Maybe there isn't. But actually, if you couple it with, for instance, I know my brother's a trainer, the national insurance contributions at his yard, and bearing in mind, he suddenly said he's now got an extra 5-figure sum on just his basic costs. So that means that's knocked onto the owners. So there's a knock-on effect from all these and business rates and everything on this particular issue. So if you add the tax thing on top, racing says it feels like a bit of a triple whammy coming at them, because suddenly there's been less money coming in, maybe through the levy. The cost to trainers now is much higher because of the costs for taxing, employing anybody. So that just gets passed on to the people who may want to buy horses. Well, if they haven't got the spare cash because it's going to be more expensive to have a horse in training, then you can see the trickle-down effect of what these changes could bring to the sport of racing. And the rural community, anyway, as a issue, feels slightly affected with the inheritance tax changes and the business rates, because many people within the rural community feel that they've approached it the wrong way. Yes, you might go after the hedgies who've got great tracts of land, but actually the smallholders, they might also feel that they're under pressure. But racing is wrapped up in that same kind of problem that maybe, and a lot of people feel, that this government doesn't actually understand what is going on within the rural community. Now, I don't want to be on my soapbox here, but racing has been, the sport of kings, as Alan referred to, part of the British fabric for some time. And it might be that this will have racing is struggling to get the oxygen of publicity. It's very good that it has ITV Racing and does get its coverage. But like all sports, they struggle for airtime outside the big beast that is football, and racing is no exception. And if it finds itself being backed into a financial corner, it might see 50 of the 59 racecourses, we could easily see some closing, because there won't necessarily be the horse population to support having 59 racecourses.
Listen, thank you very much indeed, Rupert. Thanks very much indeed for that. Simon, I bet you're glad you wasted your money in football rather than horse racing.
Well, it's an interesting phenomenon that people vilify the betting community and talk about the impacts that it has upon football. And certain football clubs inside football don't want betting anywhere near them. Luton Town have said that they won't have anything to do with betting sponsors. Yet we've got a sport that seems to be seeded in the revenues that are generated for the betting community. I would imagine, for want of a better expression, there has to be a horse trade with the betting companies about how this gets absorbed. Because the reality of it is the betting companies use the sport to be able to generate the revenues they want. It can't just be the sport that gets 11 million taken out of every single percentage point increase that the government puts on as a levy.
Obviously, I live in a country where horse racing is hugely important to the economy. Mm-hmm. Indeed, for my drive, when I go home from Dublin Airport I passed Fairy House, the Curragh, Goffs, the international sale ring for all the horses, the Gorham Park. I passed 4 race courses on one piece of motorway, and I live very near Willie Mullins' yard. You don't hear this. You don't hear this poverty thing in Ireland for whatever reason. Maybe they're winning enough prize money; it doesn't matter. But something, the balance, and I wasn't trying to put down my colleague. Rupert was speaking with great passion and knowledge there.
Sure.
But this argument about the financing of races has been going on and on and
for a
on.
long period of time.
Yeah, you're listening to White and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com. Yeah, just 10 minutes away from the start of play at Old Trafford, where England take on India in the second day of the fourth test. And we'll preview now of what should be, hopefully, a more exciting day's played than yesterday. Sam Maillard. Hi, Sam.
Yeah, morning, guys. India resuming in 10 minutes' time on 264 for 4. Jadeja and Shardul Thakur both have 19 runs to their name. Yesterday, ebbed and flowed like most days in this series. Have England winning the toss, choosing to bowl once again. Didn't pick up a wicket in the morning's test, and you wondered maybe what a poor decision that could have been from Ben Stokes. But to be fair to England, they fought back hard in the afternoon session. Did pick up 3 wickets. One of those wickets was a popular wicket. Liam Dawson playing Test cricket for the first time in 8 years. Got Jaiswal made 58. KO Royal 46. Ben Stokes got the big wicket of the captain Shubman Gill for 12. Then the evening session, Sai Siddharthan made his first 50 before Stokes got him. But so much of the talk this morning is all about one batsman called Rishabh Pant, who's had quite a remarkable series. The entertainer, he had to retire hurt on 37. 37 yesterday. Took a nasty blow to the foot trying to reverse sweep Chris Wokes. He was in real pain, had to get assisted off the pitch. He's got a nasty gash to his foot. We're awaiting confirmation on whether he can play any part in this test match again. That looks really unlikely, but perhaps next week's match at the Oval as well. He retired her on 37. So Jadeja and Takor are out the crease. England can take the new ball this morning. We should assist them in their bowling and their hope of taking 5 more Indian wickets. India resuming 264 for 4.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. We'll get regular updates from Sam, and of course you can hear commentary on that on talkSPORT's website. I should make the point, Simon, that yesterday when I was driving up half the length of Ireland to the airport, I was able to tune in, and this is not an advert, this is an unpaid advert. I was able to tune in to talkSPORT's coverage of the test.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to anymore by the BBC, bless them.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I wanted to, they've shut down the global access to the iPlayer. It's short-sighted nonsense, absolutely ridiculous.
Doesn't sound like the BBC, surely.
Don't understand it at all. But John Norman and colleagues and Steve Harmson, etc., were absolutely brilliant, very comforting. Yeah. Really enjoyed it. Just for those of you who enjoy these things, Shubman Gill lost the toss there, as we heard. That is the 14th successive toss in all forms in international cricket that India have lost. The odds against that happening are 16,000 to 1. And yet, of course, when he throws the coin up, it's 50-50. It's you go back to, it's even money. 16,000 to 1. Just got a few minutes here, Simon, to talk about Arsenal, who played a couple of 15-year-olds yesterday in a friendly match that they were playing. And they beat AC Milan 1-0. One thing, whether they're playing for Arsenal or not, I love to see new players coming through, good young players. You've actually seen and studied Max Dowman, who along with Marley Salmon, what a great name Marley Salmon is, by the way. Max Dowman played, and you think he may be beyond the real deal. He may be the next superstar.
This prima facie looks like a very special talent. When I saw him about just over a year ago, and I remember speaking to Danny Murphy about him, who was already plugged into him already, and I'd come across him as well. This is a very talented young man that has the potential to be as good as anything that's out there. I hate to throw these superlatives around because it makes unnecessary headlines.
And there's so many things that can happen as well,
Yeah, if he continues on his journey and continues to be focused and develop, he is in the sort of talent bracket of people like Lamine Yamal. Wow. That's the level he's at. This kid is a special talent. They'll talk about the levels that he's played at with the under-17s, how many goals he's played for the England under-17s, but this is a special talent, the kind of player that takes on players, beats them, and does it for fun, and produces an end product. He's a very, very gifted player. And quite frankly, this is the kind of talent that should be being produced inside our academies, inside the elite academies.
It's amazing.
Rather than hoovering them up from everyone else, they should be producing them themselves. But the fact that Arsenal are producing young players coming through, getting first-team opportunities, and the old adage, if you're good enough, you're old enough, plays a part. And we're seeing these younger players getting opportunities. We saw Jude Bellingham's ascension. We're seeing his brother ascend. We're seeing other young players coming
Skelly
through.
At Arsenal himself.
Foden came through quickly and decided not to run away and get an opportunity in another country, wait for his opportunity and play for the best manager in the world, Pep Guardiola. But if this boy Dowman continues the progress that he's got, he is a superstar. And I get the impression he's got the balance and the outlook and the backing behind him in terms of the structure of his life that will give him that opportunity.
The argument there's too much football, that game was played, AC Milan against Arsenal, in Singapore, at the stadium, which holds 55,000, was half full. Other than straightforward being guaranteed finance and revenue for doing these tours, what's the point?
Well, you've pretty much addressed the issue. The attendances are the responsibility of the promoter, let's say. And if he's lost his shirt on what he's had to pay to get Arsenal over there, then that's his problem. Of course, it moves just beyond the attendance inside the stadium. It moves to the fact there's global representation and branding. I remember walking through airports when I was in New York last year, seeing Son's face pop up everywhere, advertising all different kinds of furniture brands and luggage and stuff. And walking through New York doing this TV show that I've done that comes out soon rather than later, plug, saw all Times Square and Broadway lit up with Man City players and lit up with the museum for football with Pelé and all that sort of stuff. So football in that part of the world is an enormous commodity. But to go to your point, which is it great for Arsenal to play in front of 23,000 fans? It is what it is. And if Arsenal have been given a tour that pays a lot of money, then it becomes incumbent upon the promoter to fill the stadiums.
I'm glad you mentioned Son there, because as I understand it, the finances surrounding Spurs' upcoming tour to a Korea where they will play Arsenal is that, and of course, there's a general feeling they may want to gently ease the legend that is Son out of the club before the summer ends. If they don't bring him, if he was to be transferred, they would lose 75%. If he doesn't play, they lose 50%.
Well, I remember going to Tottenham to see Daniel back this time last year and watching the guided tours because they got the stadium tours, which you all know about, and every single one of them.
Did you go up on the high?
Yeah, I didn't go up to the top there and look out for the cop. I know I'm fighting the heights, but I saw the tours and it was all South Koreans. And it's interesting. Years and years ago, when I first bought Palace, we had the Chinese captain, Fan Zihai, and we went to China. And when we landed in China, it was like the Beatles had arrived because Fan and Sun Ji-hai, who had also come over and gone to Man City, were absolute rock stars.
Totally.
And so you're absolutely right. The commercialisation of players and commodification of them is inherently valuable to football clubs.
And that's why I presume, and I hope he turns out to be an absolute star, that's why Spurs have brought in the best young Korean player, Yang, on the hope that he will replace Son in the national team.
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to think that they buy players because of the talent and not so much as the commercial opportunities, but we are in a world where it all joins up in the middle.
It does, whether I like it or not.
Do you think? I mean, I was disappointed with Son last season. But people telling me that he was carrying an injury for a lot of the time. I'm not.
He was carrying an injury, also carrying a mental problem, and that he had been blackmailed back in Korea, and the police have finally made charges.
Right. Okay.
Now that can really affect a person, I think. But if you asked me, is he the Son of 5 years ago?
No, he's not.
Then the answer is not. He can leave Spurs or stay at Spurs. I don't mind. He's a legend. He's been a fantastic player for Spurs. They can put a statue up to him for all I care. But if you ask me if he's in decline, I'd say small D.
Yeah,
decline.
I think that's right.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
And that's the truth of it. Listen, we've got so much more to get through in the next hour of the show. Plus, after that, we'll be joined by Spencer Oliver for the boxing hour. Not much to talk about there at all, is there? We'll be back to you in just a few minutes' time, where, among other things, I'll be getting Simon's view on Manchester United, asking their season ticket holders to pay $4,000 for the privilege. That's coming up next year, and much else besides, on Kelly and Jordan on talkSPORT.
Andy Farrell has rung the changes for the second Lions test against the Wallabies in Melbourne. Some are forced, others unforced. Bundee Aki comes in at 12 and Hugh Jones remains at 13, but both those decisions are due to injuries.
Sione has a little bit of a tight hamstring there, so that influences that. Gary Ringrose, Hugh comes in. Gary, was actually selected, and unfortunately in training today he's had to pull out. That's unfortunate for Gary.
So what does this tell us about the upcoming test? Well, here's our reporter down under, Alfie Reynolds.
First of all, I think when you look at the bench options, I mentioned Ellis Genge amongst the replacements, Jack Morgan being named there, Owen Farrell coming on, Blair Kinghorn coming on. I think there's a part of it that the Lions had the first test pretty much wrapped up after 50 minutes, but they did drop off in the last 20 of that. So I think Andy Farrell wants more from his bench, wants more of an impact.
Elsewhere, he's got his move to Barcelona, but what will Marcus Rashford do there? Former Barca midfielder Bolo Zenden says it's a crazy good opportunity for someone who tumbled down the levels so quickly at Old Trafford.
If this doesn't ignite the engine again, I don't know what will. So I'm definitely sure that he will give it all. We've seen glimpses of it when he was at Villa. I've also heard things like that he was a professional on and off the pitch, that he was doing his defensive work, that he was, well, living as a pro.
And can England survive another Spanish Inquisition in the Euros final this Sunday? They may have the scars of the World Cup final loss, but as Adrian Durham told us, recent history makes for better reading.
The last two games between England and Spain this year, Spain beat England 2-1 in Barcelona. I was there a month ago. England were 1-up at half-time. It was quite a tight game in the end. A little bit of magic won it for Spain. And before that, England beat Spain 1-0. Jess Park with the only goal at a packed Wembley. So it's been pretty tight in the games. Player for player, you'd say Spain are a lot better. They've got more Ballon d'Or contenders, if you like. But England will feel confident from the performances against Spain.
And make sure you tune in when it might just come home again on Sunday afternoon, live on talkSPORT. And all your transfer news is at talksport.com.
Yeah, no such confrontation when it's Kelly and Jordan as it is for the next 2 days here on talkSPORT. More two old mates sat in the garden, putting the world to right about football and the other sports beyond that. Don't forget, we've got an hour of boxing coming up from midday. Spencer Oliver will come to bring his, both his fantastic vocabulary and his knowledge of the game. So much to talk about in that sport, particularly after that big night in Wembley, preceded by a big night in Daniel Dubois' house. I mean, just incredible.
Indeed.
Look, I'm not an expert.
I have to say, Dan, I have to take umbrage. I've never heard anyone describe Spencer Oliver's vocabulary as fantastic.
Well, I think he's very good.
We'll pick up on that when he comes in.
Absolutely. You don't have to have a load of big words at your fingertips like I have. It's do you make yourself understood? I'm
going to take some credit for that. In the same way you've taken credit for me being your protege, I shall take some credit for Spencer Oliver, given that I've spent so much time with him over the last couple of years.
We're really moving down the scale.
We are, absolutely.
And I should remind you as well that you're listening to White and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. It's where the trade go. The cricket is up and running in Manchester. We'll bring you updates on that throughout the morning here.
I want them to batter in there, don't you, after their whining? The Indian captain whining about the fact that the England players did a certain thing and all that.
What was interesting about that, sorry, I know we're going to do the thing we're supposed to do in a second, is that Shubman Gill was overly honest. He said there are ways of wasting time in cricket. It's perfectly legitimate. I don't like the ones you're using.
Absolutely.
I mean, either it's right or it's wrong to waste time, you know. Listen, it's time now for us to round up some of football's top business stories with Tesco Mobile for Business.
Business briefing on talkSPORT with Tesco Mobile for Business. Got a side hustle selling clothes? Save in style with business phone bills for up to 40% less than the big three networks. For verification, see tescomobile.com/business.
Yeah, perhaps the most extraordinary sequence of events in European football at a financial level in the past few months has been, if you listen to Trans-Europe Express, myself and Andy Brassel, you'll be all across this, has been that surrounding Lyon, Olympique Lyonnais, a Lyon football club who've been relegated, reinstated, stripped of their transfer powers, all sorts of things. The latest news coming out of Lyon is that they have hired lawyers to try and pull themselves out of a deal to sign international goalkeeper Matt Turner, familiar, of course, to Premier League watchers. Here to try and get some handle on what's going on, we're joined by journalist for L'Equipe, Eric Bilderman. Hello, Eric.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Look, everything about Lyon is complicated these days. What are they trying to do? They've signed contracts with Matt Turner and his club. What are they trying to do now?
They try to get rid of the contract because the contract was signed under the previous big man, John Textor of Lyon, the man who is was in charge of the finance of the club, and they went close to bankruptcy. So they do feel that 8 million euros, which is 6.5 million pounds for a second goalkeeper in the club, is too much money considering the financial agreement that they signed with the French financial court of football. They do feel that they need to cancel this agreement, and they know that they will have to pay a fine to Nottingham Forest to find a friendly agreement to get free of the transfer deal, because at Lyon, with the new settlement done, you must sell one player to buy one player. If you sell 10 million a player, you can buy a cheaper player. But with this player, Matt Turner, they feel this is a choice by the former administration, and they don't want to keep that contract.
Eric, isn't it the case though that they need Matt Turner because Lucas Perry, the current goalkeeper, is one of their most saleable assets, and if they were to try and sort themselves out financially, he's 6'6", he's a fantastic goalkeeper, he is actually shaped for the Premier League. Surely he'd be one of the people who tried to move on, and Turner would be the replacement. Or have I missed something?
Yeah, that's the question mark that I don't have a clue, because we don't know too much about this goalkeeper except that he's from Nottingham Forest and he's a US more than 50 caps experienced goalkeeper. So to me, that seems an obvious choice if Perry is on his way, because he's a goalkeeper with a great value in the market. They will say, we bought this goalkeeper to be the second goalkeeper, and they don't feel that he is the first goalkeeper. I think behind that, they do feel that they will make big money with Perry, and they will try to find not a better, but a player, a goalkeeper that they suit more for any reason, which I don't know. Maybe one of the French goalkeeper from the French market, and they might have a better bargain. As the question mark on that, I don't have a clue. To me, it's very surprising. It's very rude not to respect a contract. This goalkeeper looks like a serious goalkeeper to be in a team like Lyon, because Lyon, it's nearly nothing now. It's a team which will fight for in the relegation zone or in the mid-table zone. They have lost Cherki, to go to Manchester City. They lost their striker, Lacazette. They might lose Tolisso to Man United a couple of days ago. It was in the air. They lost Thiago Almada to Atletico Madrid.
Great player.
It's just the beginning of the story.
And what's your overall feeling then if we return to the football pitch rather than the courts? And by the way, they shouldn't be fighting Mr. Marinakis in the courts. He's got a tremendous track record in courts of law. You say Lyon will be fighting relegation. I mean, that's extraordinary, given that they are technically the second biggest club in France. But that's what you see, Eric, is it that once they've stripped out the best players, they will be in the bottom half of the table?
Yeah, I mean, they have lost already their best players. They will lose their goalkeeper. They might lose Tolisso, the midfield soul of the club. Tagliafico, the Argentinian defensor, says he wants to stay. He wants to give a big low in his wages to stay. But even with that, if they have an opportunity to sell him, they will sell him. So the point is that they have been saved by miracle, and miracle doesn't work if you spend money. To make the miracle still go running, they need to not to spend, but to save money and to go with the young players and try to find clever deal. And to me, Turner was a clever deal, but for any reason, the 8 million that they do spend on this, they need it. They need it.
Okay, listen, Eric, thank you very, very much for trying to shine the light of clarity into the situation at Lyon, which, as I see it, they've got to sell all their assets and then they'll struggle in the league. Simon, to move on to another story, because we're running a little bit out of time in this section, Manchester United fans may have to pay £4,000 to reserve a seat at the new stadium. Now, of course, the new stadium may be pie in the sky, and it may be something that'll be built in 5 years. Who knows? As I understand it, Manchester United season tickets have been told they could have to pay £4,000 each to reserve a seat at the new ground if the proposed
This has been done before, though, hasn't it?
It's been done at Arsenal, the so-called debenture scheme.
Exactly.
Was it done at West Ham as well?
Yeah, I'm not sure it was done at West Ham.
Okay.
Because obviously West Ham moved to a stadium that wasn't theirs to own and was very different in its construct. I think it was done at Wembley. And it's not a new scheme. Of course, it will catch the headlines because it's Man United and it's Jim Ratcliffe and it's more money that someone's being asked to pay, and it goes in line with redundancies and all kinds of things. It's a commercial model that people do. They charge debentures for people to guarantee their position.
West Ham had a bondholder scheme,
a bondholder
similar
scheme.
sort of,
and it's like having a debenture. It's like joining a golf club and being able to become a member of a golf club to some extent. You pay a debenture in some of these elite golf clubs to be part of it. People won't like it. People will resist it. It's part of the funding mechanisms, and I suspect they're going to deploy to be able to find.
Amazingly, Spurs didn't do it with the new stadium.
Well, Daniel got some very cheap money. Daniel got some very, very cheap money and did some deals with various people to be able to do the infrastructure. I mean, he'll tell you himself, he couldn't build this stadium now. If he was trying to build this stadium because he built it for £1 billion, and he took cheap money from the government, and really cheap money, long range.
I happen to know as well that the cost of building materials has doubled in the past 5 years.
I mean, he'll tell you himself, if he was trying to build a stadium now, it would cost £2.5 3 billion. So it would preclude the opportunity for having done it. But this is not something that's unique to Man United. It's a lever that will get pulled by commercial entities building out new stadiums, and people will respond to it in the way that they want to. Well, if they want to guarantee their seat, then they'll be prepared to pay. If they want to take the lottery of being able to buy a season ticket.
What about the optics here, Simon? Let me just say that on behalf of Manchester United fans, this just looks like the new owners turning the Man United fans upside down and shaking them till the last pennies fall out of their pockets.
Well, I sat here in a studio with Sam Matterface, who tells me he's got 3 tickets at Man United and pays a season ticket price of about £2,000 for 3 tickets, which is £600 per season ticket. That doesn't feel like people are being turned up, down and shaken for money. I think there's certain elements of it that it's a difficult balance for me to strike, Dan, because I sit here as a former owner, and I'll get to this point quickly because I'm conscious we've got a break.
Sure.
You sit in a room and the fans will tell you it's their football club, until you tell them they've got to pay some money towards it, and then it's your football club because you've got to do it. The commercial reality of a football club is it's the sum of all its parts. Broadcast and revenue. You want the best football club in the world. You want the best stadiums. You want the best players. You want the outcomes that are now being dictated by finances. Grow up. This is what it costs. This is what it costs. Now, I know that the other side of this equation is they'll all look at these guys.
I didn't have to say them. I just looked at him with a special glare.
I know where you're going to go with the Glazers because they haven't put a penny into it.
No.
So ultimately, this is, I don't know if you've ever read the book that the fellow wrote called The World's Greatest Cash Machine. We had the author in it here who wrote all about United, and it'll give you even more insight into it. That was the most remarkable deal that's ever been done. But you've got to look at the shareholders. You've got to look at the reasons why that deal was created. And Ferguson and JP McManus can have a look at themselves as well as how that outcome was here. But I take your point. In the instances of the Glazers, it is a bit rich that everyone else will have to pay for their outcomes. At the very least, that was step one of my argument. But we'll save it for a little bit later. Okay. And that was a roundup of football's top business stories from Tesco Mobile for Business.
Business briefing on talkSPORT with Tesco Mobile for Business. Got a side hustle selling clothes? Save in style with business phone bills for up to 40% less than the big 3 networks. For verification, see tescomobile.com/business.
Yeah, and listen, I've been waiting to say this for, several years since I do daytime shows on talkSPORT. There's been a wicket in the cricket. Sam Allard.
Yeah, and it only took England 2 overs to get their first wicket of day 2. India 276 for 5. Ravi Jadeja goes for 20. Jofra Archer bowled a really nice opening over. Found the outside edge on 2 occasions of Jadeja and also Shardul Thakur's bat. But both edges fell short, and then he finally got one to carry to second slip. A ball that just moved away from the left-handed Jadeja. Took the outside edge. Good catch to second slip by Harry Brooks. So Shardul Thakur has 30 to his name. Washington Sundar in at 7, yet to get off the mark. India 276 for 5, but effectively 276 for 6 for Rishabh Pant's injury.
Thanks, Sam. And a reminder, we're streaming live on YouTube and on your smart TV. For all the info on how to watch the show, just head to talksport.com/watch, particularly as it's now in this more glamorous format of myself and Simon. And bear in mind that you're listening to White and Jordan on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's real deals at selcobw.com. Yeah, Coldplay are back at Wembley this summer, and we've got a huge VIP prize up for grabs for one lucky listener. We're giving you the chance to win 6 tickets in a private box for you and your mates on August the 22nd with full hospitality. Plus, we're chucking in 10 grand spending money completely tax-free. Here's how to enter. It's 18 plus. It's the UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, text the word WIN to 83338 by the 4th of August at 11 p.m. and you're in the draw. Text costs £2, £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission or post your name and number to Coldplay Competition, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 7th of August. This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's are at talksport.com. Now, some interesting stories coming from the world of tennis, which I don't pretend to be an expert about, which is why we need an expert. Here comes former British tennis star Barry Cowan. Hello, Barry.
Good morning, Danny. Good morning, Simon.
Really good to talk to you after, it must have been a little while since I spoke to you, Barry.
Yeah.
What should we make of the fact that Yannick Sinner, champion at Wimbledon and all the rest of it, has now rehired Umberto Ferreira, his fitness coach, who he let go after the drugs scandal, I suppose is the word you'd use, engulfed him. What should we make of it?
Yeah, I think if you don't mind, we'll sort of go back to the very start, where in March 2024, he failed a drugs test twice in the space of a week, and then we all heard news around this time last year, and then of course what happened? The ITIA, which is the Independent Tennis Tribunal, they found him not guilty. WADA, the World Anti-Doping, they appealed and they said we expect him to. We think it should be a 1 to 2 year ban. Then the appeal was set for April this year, and then just after the Australian Open, he was given a 3-month ban. So that's the kind of the story for Sinner.
Yes.
He didn't miss any Grand Slams. Now, if I just go back to his comments last year when he decided to get rid of not just Ferrara, the fitness, but also the physio, and they were deemed. Those two were deemed responsible, negligence of members of his entourage. That was
Barry. Just to stop you for a second, did he get rid of them prior to doing a deal with them?
So he got rid of them this time last year, Simon, and he said, because of their mistakes, I am not feeling that confident to continue with them.
But was that prior to him doing a deal to accept a 3-month suspension?
No. Yes, yeah, that was prior, yes.
So it was all part of a package of him saying, I'll do a deal with you, and here's, by the way, here are the scapegoats.
No. They'd already gone. They'd gone they'd gone a year ago.
Right.
So now, if I'm looking from the outside, which I'm sure you two are, and I'm sure a lot of people are looking from the outside, will say, well, what has changed with Umberto Ferrara, who was the fitness trainer, who has a degree in pharma technology? He bought the substance. Giancomo Naudi, the physio, he applied it to his cut.
Yeah.
And it was within a couple of months or whatever that Ferrara actually was back working with Matteo Berrettini, who we all know, he's a former Wimbledon finalist. So it doesn't seem...
Barry, can I take you back a step even further?
Yeah.
The independent tribunal, which is set up by the tennis governance, clearly doesn't operate with a principle of strict liability, does it? Because otherwise, irrespective of whatever defence he could have put forward, he would have got a ban, right? Because in every other sport, you get a ban because strict liability kicks in. That was the argument around the Conor Benn situation, and the technicality got him out from underneath. So how was he cleared to such an extent that WADA kicked in and went, hang on a second, we can't tolerate this. This is undermining the principles of what we're trying to achieve. How was he cleared in the first instance?
Well, that's what none of us know, because it was meant that, as I said, the case was meant to be set for April. So we are all April 2025. So we are all waiting for April 2025. And then it was literally days after he won the Australian Open, a deal was struck. Yeah. WADA with ITIA, along with Sinner and I guess his representatives, that he would miss 3 months. And if you're looking from the outside, and obviously it was decided that he was not responsible, Sinner, for failing the drug test, because he proved within 24 hours how that substance got in his system, which was the cream that was obviously applied from Naudi on his cut, and then he gave the treatment to Sinner without gloves.
Yeah,
So that
of course,
was
the argument then raged about the convenience of the 3-month ban allowing him to come back for the slams, isn't it?
Exactly, but I do feel someone needs to be held responsible for it. Now, it seems from the fact that it was negligence of members of his entourage, why is it then that they have not served a ban? And I just think PR-wise, it just doesn't look good for Sinner. The fact that he got rid of Ferrara last year, and we're not even 12 months past, he's rehired him.
Yeah, I mean, before, in the build-up to the US Open, he did a press conference, Sinner, where he used an interesting phrase saying that he wouldn't be able to work with Ferrara on Naldi in the future because he wanted clean air surrounding him. Perhaps the clean air is no longer his number one priority. Very, very, very interesting story, and maybe the whole gang will be back together very, very soon.
Maybe he doesn't care about the optics. Maybe the package was created that the two consultants, one of them being his sports advisor and the other being the masseuse, were offered up to ensure that the deal that he was doing to get himself up underneath was curated the way he wanted to. And maybe he looks at it now and goes, well, I don't really care. I want my sports consultant back. I want him back to be able to give me the advice. I'm the number one tennis player in the world. A lot of arguments were raging about the privileges that he was allowed to have as a result of being the number one tennis player. And that's where the argument came from Novak Djokovic and Nick Kyrgios about the refinancing of tennis to be able to make sure that the number 150 player can have access to the same sort of outcomes that the number one tennis player. I think that's slightly unrealistic because in the world of real life, the guy with the most money often achieves the best outcomes. A
fact that you may be able to confirm, but I certainly couldn't. Barry, is Barry still with us?
Yeah.
Barry, let's move on then. 45-year-old Venus Williams has won a game on the WTA in the Washington Open. She beat Peyton Stearns, becoming the oldest woman to win a singles match on the WTA tour. This is really split opinion, Barry. For me, it seems like a great piece of fun. Well done to her. Other people are saying it shows the terrible standards in the women's game, which is true.
Well, I think we just got to say she's an extraordinary athlete, and I always say I don't think it's up to any of us to decide when someone should retire. If they still want to compete, and they still want to be able to get out there and see their level, and she's still clearly got the motivation. I find it extraordinary, actually, that she's been able to, after a couple of years, come out and play at that level.
I mean,
to beat someone in the world's top 50 as opposed to
she's the world number 35. It's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. There was no substance behind it that you would expect her to go out there and perform the way Venus did, and because of that, she's now got a wild card for Cincinnati in a couple of weeks' time. So, yeah, I mean, personally, I wouldn't have the motivation at 45 to do what she's doing, but maybe that was the reason she was a champion.
Yeah, people reminding me, of course, that Martina Navratilova in 2004 won a game on the tour at 47 years of age. So something for Venus to shoot for there. Barry?
And it wouldn't surprise me, Danny. It wouldn't surprise me if Novak Djokovic at 45 years of age is still winning matches, because as long as they still got the will, those champions, I mean, they are bred differently. And that's why they are multiple champions, because they have that belief. Even from the outsider, we think they're maybe not good enough. That was the same thing with Djokovic. People were saying to me, well, why doesn't Djokovic retire? Well, it's like, well, he's 3 in the race this year. He still believes if he's fit, he can still beat Sinner and Alcaraz.
Listen, thank you very, very much indeed. Barry Cowan there with all latest from the world of tennis. I would make a point that Sinner and others have withdrawn from the Canadian Open, including Britain's Jack Draper and Carlos Alcaraz, because, of course, they too are now on a kind of hamster wheel of having to go from tournament to tournament. I mean, they're well paid for it.
They're preferring the US Open, aren't they?
Yeah, well, of course. Absolutely right. Listen, we'll have a little bit of a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the prize money and the honours that may be coming the Lionesses' way, assuming they overcome a very, very good Spanish side in this weekend's final of the Women's Euros. What a game last night, by the way. I thought it was going to be Germany were going to do the very German thing of being slightly the worst team all the way through and finding a way. But, of course, one moment of brilliance by a Ballon d'Or winner fixed that for us. We'll talk about Serena Wiegmann and the Lionesses next here on talkSPORT.
Farrell has rung the changes for the second Lions test against the Wallabies in Melbourne. Some are forced, others unforced.
Sione has a little bit of a tight hamstring there, so that influences that. Gary Ringrose, Hugh comes in. Gary, was actually selected, and unfortunately in training he's had to pull out.
So what does this tell us about the upcoming test? Well, here's our reporter down under, Alfie Reynolds.
The Lions had the first test pretty much wrapped up after 50 minutes, but they did drop off in the last 20 of that. So I think Andy Farrell wants more from his bench, wants more of an impact.
Elsewhere, he's got his move to Barcelona, but what will Marcus Rashford do there? Former Barca midfielder Bolo Zenden says it's a crazy good opportunity for someone who tumbled down the levels so quickly at Old Trafford.
If this doesn't ignite the engine again, I don't know what will. So I'm definitely sure that he will give it all.
And can England survive another Spanish Inquisition in the Euros final this Sunday? They may have the scars of the World Cup final loss, but as Adrian Durham told us, recent history makes for better reading.
The last two games between England and Spain this year, Spain beat England 2-1 in Barcelona. I was there a month ago. England were 1-up at half-time. It was quite a tight game in the end. A little bit of magic won it for Spain. And before that, England beat Spain 1-0. Jess Park with the only goal at a packed Wembley. So it's been pretty tight in the games.
And all your transfer news is at talkSPORT.com.
Yes, now it's time to catch up on all the odds thanks to BetMGM.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get ready for the golden era of sports betting. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18+gambleaware.org.
I always wonder if that voice means I can say I've worked with Chris Rock. I'd like to say I've worked with Chris Rock. Joined now by Charlie Robertson from BetMGM to look at today's top sports events and to discuss all the latest odds. Hello, Charlie.
Morning, Danny. Morning, Simon.
Thank you for joining us. News today that Alexander Isak won't be going on Newcastle's pre-season tour of Asia. Has that affected the odds for the Premier League's top 6 places?
Yeah, they're actually the team that continue to drift, Danny. They're out to 11 to 20. Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, and Chelsea are all long odds on for the top 6. But then you've got, as I mentioned, Newcastle 11 to 20. Man United are actually odds on at 4 to 5. Your side, Danny, Tottenham at 6 to 4. Villa at 27 to 20. Brighton at 5 to 1, and Nottingham Forest at 7 to 1. Yeah, as I mentioned, Newcastle, the notable ones that seem to be drifting, obviously on the back of the Isak news. Will he stay? Will he go? And we've actually seen money for your team, Danny, Spurs, for the top 6, and also for United. Gents, how do you see that top 6 looking as things stand? Would you imagine that Newcastle will still be in there, or could you see the likes of a Brighton, a Villa, or even a Nottingham Forest again?
I'll throw it back to you, Charlie. Why are Newcastle drifting? Because with Liverpool having bought a centre-forward, Arsenal having bought a centre-forward, unless it's Manchester United, where will Alexander Isak go? He'll presumably be at St James's Park for next season.
I think there's still sort of murmurs, Danny, that the Liverpool might still be in for him despite the PK bid. I think that's probably what people are saying. I know he's not gone on that tour, or he's clearly a bit unsettled, isn't he, by all the speculation. So I imagine it's that. And yet, if he does go, it's obviously a massive hole to fill. So that's why I think there's that drift on them, in line with the other teams, perhaps strengthening a bit more than Newcastle have.
Yeah, and obviously the other one to remember is that Spurs, of course, will be top 3 this season. Absolutely. I've no reason for saying that. I just want to hear my voice saying it. Now, listen, yesterday Simon had the Live golfers Lee Westwood and Henrik Stenson on the show. And tomorrow, the tournament at the JCB Club begins.
It does indeed, yeah. Really good chat as with Simon and Sam yesterday with Stenson and Westwood. Just a quick look at the prices. Bryson DeChambeau, who bar a really bad opening round at the Open last week, played really well. He's the 9-2 favourite with last year's winner John Rahm, next best at 11-2, and then home favourite Tyrrell Hatton 13-2. Over the bigger prices, I thought Dustin Johnson could go quite well. He played pretty well at the Open, gone well in this tournament before. He's a 33-1 chance. And Lee Westwood himself could be a bit of a dark horse. He played pretty well last week. And we've boosted his price to 100-1, Danny, so that could tempt a few people in at a nice price.
Charlie, meanwhile, in Manchester, India are 285 for 5. It's essentially 285 for 6 because Rishabh Pant will not bat anymore with his foot injury. What are the latest odds from the cricket?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Danny, that Pant injury has obviously turned things around. It was a pretty even day yesterday, but with effectively playing with 10 men. We make England 4-5 favourites now. They obviously got that early wicket this morning. India 39-20 and the draw 23-5. I think, as you mentioned, Pant's a pretty big loss for India. So England have gone odds on after that wicket this morning and Pant's injury.
Listen, Charlie, that's all fantastic. Thank you very, very much indeed. That was a look at the latest odds. All thanks to BetMGM. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. It's 18 plus, obviously, and be gambleaware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18 plus gambleaware.org.
Yeah, there's some speculation, but also some revelation about the rewards available to both the England footballers and to Serena Wiegmann should England triumph at the weekend when they play Spain in the final. And a Spain team that will be significantly tighter, I should imagine, than England. That was a very, very tough game last night. I watched it, and you know what it's like. When it's 0-0 and it goes to extra time, the mental strain on the players not to make the error that matters. So it turns out that the players will be getting about 87 grand each as a winning bonus if they getting it for reaching the final.
For reaching the final, they get more if they win the final. They get a share of 4.3 million sterling.
And I guess, and the other thing people are discussing is whether Serena Wiegmann will then be given an honorary knighthood, a damehood to be absolutely precise. She's not a British citizen, so a bit like Bob Geldof after Live Aid, he has to get an honorary honour. Let's take the money first. Look, if the players are successful, they deserve whatever they can get and whatever is in their contract. The numbers are tiny compared, of course, to the men's.
Absolutely.
But all this reflects to me, Simon, is that the women's game is growing. People are putting some money into it. The sponsors are coming, and they come. There's no problem with this. If they reaching the final is a big achievement. If they win it, good. To the work it is due.
It's all relative to the commercial value of the game, and I don't know what the previous structure was for the last Euros and how much they got and what the comparison is, and see if it actually has grown. But I have no issue. The England men's players give away their bonuses, don't they? And gave them away to charity, I think, in terms of the last competition, because the scale of earnings that they have at domestic level is vastly eclipsing this. So I don't have any view on this. I like to see. I disagree with arguments being put forward by people like Karen Carney that suggest that the money in football should be equalised between the men and the women's game. That's an unrealistic expectation because you've got to commercialise the game, and every opportunity to commercialise it to benefit the finances of the game, to be able to enhance the talent pool, to be able to invest in the facilities, to be able to build stadiums for women's football that incorporates, because there's a lot to be said for it. I watch the actions and reactions from fans that watch women's football, and I don't like the argument when it's weaponised against men and women. You took the game away from us, we couldn't play between the 70s and 80s. There's a part of me that says, well, you can have the 70s and 80s. That was when we had hooliganism. No one wanted to broadcast the football match and the game was going bankrupt. You can have those if you want, but the argument that then you should be
time in the 70s and 80s. I'd have them back tomorrow, but that's another story.
You didn't have that good a time because Spurs got relegated.
I'm not about football, so I'm way beyond the world of football.
All right, fine, okay. But insofar as these women being able to achieve more and more from the game and the commercialisation, the best thing that's ever happened in women's football in this country is the breaking away from the FA and forming the Women's Super League. Get the FA out of the way. The moment you got the FA out of the way for the Premier League, all of a sudden you had a completely different dynamic for football.
Completely moving away from this for a second, you actually have hit on something there, Simon. My favourite season supporting Tottenham was the year that they were in the second tier of English football.
Is that right? In your
the
yellow
second
kit?
division. Indeed, wore that
With
yellow
the Admiral.
kit with Admiral with a bracelet and
Indeed.
went halfway down.
Indeed.
I happened to be at university before they.
Who was the goalkeeper? Barry
tired of my
Daines.
presence. They were tired of my presence. Very good, Simon.
Very
Very
good.
good indeed.
Yeah.
Neil McNabb with his little moustache. Because in those days, of course, you didn't need tickets in advance. So we're in the middle of the country, and in a Vauxhall Viva 1100 that my friend Sly had, we went and watched every game, home and away. And Spurs were often, Simon, the Spurs travelling contingent was outnumbering the locals. It's amazing.
But it was like that with United, wasn't it? When United went down to 74.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
I mean, Palace were at that point in Division 3 South or something, trying to find their way out from
looking for you, waiting for
me to arrive on the horizon. But on the other side, on the subject matter with Serena Wigman, I don't like the idea of sports people necessarily. I think gongs were given out for different reasons, and I think sports has hijacked it. But by the standards now that we give out gongs,
sure,
she has to be in line for it.
Otherwise, it looks like discriminatory. Why not her?
She's won the Euros.
Yep.
Her achievements for England have been to get them to 3 finals in her 3 tournaments. By the Gareth Southgate metric, she has to be given an award. And whilst I feel that this wasn't what gongs were created for, the world has changed. It has evolved, and it's become a very different dynamic, and people get rewarded for lots of things in society. And she has produced an outcome for women's football at the international level, which has eclipsed the men's. And if Southgate's got it, then she must get it.
Can you?
Can't be an argument, can it?
I mean, well, it's the honour system. I have a problem with the honour system itself, and it's this. I haven't got one. Can you imagine a world in which the contribution I've made to the nation,
To the broadcasting landscape,
absolutely, has not been rewarded with a knighthood?
Absolutely. Fundamentally flawed. It shows you the flaw of the system.
Every January and summer comes round, and I wait by the letterbox for the little envelope to flop
your notification
onto the coconut
Maybe you
mat.
should just swear and call them rude names like Beckham did, and you'll get one eventually.
The other part, thank you. The other story. Oh God, I don't. If I have to work as hard as David has worked to get one, you know me, I don't want to do that. Then. The other story of this is that Prince William is expected. He's the he's a supreme. Yeah, he is. Yeah. He's expected to go to the final. He didn't go to the previous one. It turned down to flying to watch the World Cup. I didn't go to that, but that was in Australia. I don't know. Yeah, it's no big deal, I suspect.
No, I mean, people can make noise about it if they want to. I think he's very vociferous, as has the King been about the achievements of the ladies, both present and past. And he's going to be there. So I think it's right that these figureheads. I mean, he's a passionate football fan, isn't he? You saw him in the PSG stadium when he's an Aston Villa fan, which I always find perplexing. I know that's where he went to university.
Yeah.
But I always find it perplexing that the future King of England is an Aston Villa fan, with all due respect to Aston Villa, which is a great football club and I have plenty of respect for.
The person who's going to be struggling with this is Stan Collymore, who will want the King of England to be an Aston Villa fan, but is so completely Republican that he'll find him absolutely
conflicted.
Absolutely conflicted about the whole thing.
But I think it's a fascinating I think England have got a real chance in this final, because I think, despite the fact that I think they've been poor, and they were poor against the Italians, and the Italians have to look at themselves and think, how did we let that one get away from us? One quality ball in the second half, funnily enough, produces a goal. The 2 girls that come on, Chloe Kelly's done well in both games, and so has Michelle. I think that in a high tide, boats rise, and I think England will rise to the opposition. And I've got a sneaking feeling that because they've been poor, with the notable exception of a game against the Dutch, that they might sneak out a victory in this game against the backdrop of the Spanish being everyone's favourites.
Yeah, and the Spaniards haven't quite yet played up to the standards, and that's not to say they won't, that they would expect of themselves. And by definition, they are 24 hours tireder than the English team. And as I say, it was a really, really brutally athletic game last night, and they'll have to recover in a way that gives them a chance against England.
England have had 2 lots of injury time, haven't they? To play,
sure,
two lots of extra time to play in games.
They have. I'm not as extra time and injury time is not the big thing it used to be, because the 5 substitutes now, or 6.
True, but they'll make it a big thing as the reason why they can't achieve something.
Sure. Listen, England are caught. We're jumping from one sport to another. We're well into we're 45 minutes into the play in the second day of the 4th test between India and England at Old Trafford. Let's get the very latest from Sam Ellard.
India 290 for 5, just the 1 wicket for England this morning. Jofra Archer, who's bowling nicely, getting Ravi Jadeja for 20, a good ball that just moved away from the left-hander, found the outside edge. There was a good catch from Harry Brook at second slip. Shardul Thakur recalled to the team for this match. He's got 35 runs to his name and is looking very well organised at the crease. Washington Sundar has 4 runs to his name, getting off the mark from his 19th delivery, knocking Chris Woakes' opening ball out to mid-wicket. So India have added just 28 runs to their overnight score, being very watchful this morning. England starting the day by taking the new ball that they weren't able to do last night because of bad light. It's Archer and Woakes who have bowled all the overs for England so far this morning, finding a little bit of extra movement they didn't do for a lot of the day yesterday. So India battling hard in tricky conditions here in Manchester. Again, a reminder, Rishabh Pant retiring hurt, not likely to play a further part in this game. India 295 for 5.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. We'll keep across all of that cricket as it. I mean, hopefully the weather holds. Is that insulting to Manchester? But hopefully the weather holds and we'll have a full day's play. And Sam will bring you every snack of it here on talkSPORT. You're listening to Jordan and Kelly, and we're back very, very soon to talk about the possibility of the Commonwealth Games for the first time ever not being on the BBC. I guess we're talking about broadcasting landscape here, but also about a sport that I absolutely love, but I think is in danger of disappearing, and that is athletics. The Commonwealth Games, of course, there are other sports, particularly in the lesser than they used to be, because when Glasgow decided exactly a year to the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, they took up the challenge of the Commonwealth Games when Victoria decided it was too expensive. Victoria, Australia, the state decided it was going to be too expensive. But as yet, there has been no deal. And the BBC have been very, very stern that they have yet to do a deal for the Commonwealth Games, for which the blue ribbon part is the athletics. Meanwhile, Simon, we've seen Michael Johnson, the, of course, brilliant 200 and 400 metre and pundit champion over the years, trying to deal with what's going on in America. I put on a series in the last 3 or 4 months called Grand Slam Track. Some huge names racing in some very unfamiliar collegiate tracks. But that series, I can't say it ran out of money because I'll get in trouble with the lawyers, but they cancelled the last event. And it was a complicated format, but it only had runners and no sort of field events. And the last thing I'd say is that the Diamond League meeting in London last week had a big crowd at what is now the West Ham Stadium, but the BBC chose to put it behind the red button. And all of these things, it seems to me that the athletics is in danger of, like so many sports, of just not being able to sell itself,
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't profess to understand the infrastructure of how British athletics is held together. I did spend some time with Sebastian Coe talking about various issues, and obviously at the time he was the president of the IAAF, or World Athletics Federation, or whatever it's called, going to be the president of IOC, which he didn't achieve. No. He has some thinking and lots of thinking. He's a very bright man, very sophisticated man in lots of ways, and very bold. Decisions that he made about the biological males competing in female sports was a bold decision, and the right one, by the way. But you look at the construct of British athletics, and you look at the athletics full stop, and it is being dwarfed by other sports.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to have any regularity and doesn't build any tribalism as other sports do. We don't seem to have. I go back to my time and to some degree your time, and looking at some of the athletes that came out, like Daley Thompson, Sebastian Coe himself, Steve Ovett, and we can go on talking about other athletes that were at times household names. Yet we don't seem to have that.
But Keely Hodgkinson, for instance, should be a household name now.
She should be.
For instance.
But there's always this argument running around about how successful Olympics are now and how much participation in terms of audience participation. The broadcasters, I think there's an inherent responsibility, certainly by the state broadcaster, to and the nation's funded broadcaster, to make sure that they do commercial deals to broadcast sports of a certain ilk.
Yeah, it becomes important part of the culture of the country.
Yeah. Whether I saw Des Lynam, and we talked very briefly a moment ago, talks about the idea of pay-per-view. Yeah. Well, maybe, because commercialization of the BBC and the challenges that the BBC has in this new relevant landscape of how we're watching and consuming information, and the impartiality situations around the BBC and how it should have to compete commercially against other broadcasters and have the same landscape, I think has some resonance. But I worry for these sports because there doesn't seem to be enormous amounts of innovation at their centre, because sports have to reinvent themselves. Cricket has managed to successfully reinvent itself from the T20 side of things and the 100 game that's created a different feel about it.
Darts is another
thing.
Really good example. It was gone, wasn't it? And now it's back.
Yeah,
absolutely, and back in a huge way.
Yeah.
Look, I don't want to be kicking a man when he's down, but I'm really interested in athletics, and yet recently, for things like the under 21 to under 23 championships, I really wanted to see what was going on, not least because Ireland's having a golden moment in it with athletics. Then it wasn't televised, so largely, certainly not in these islands. So it was. I went onto YouTube and to the internet. It was so badly presented there. I don't mean people like me. I meant the way you couldn't find the events you wanted and all the rest of it. So it's not even enough that you and I would say, well, of course, we'll put it out on the internet and charge for it, or not charge for it, whatever. You still have to do that right. And it strikes me that the level of thinking and presentation of athletics
competency
is really poor. Now, Michael Johnson's events, they too suffered. I mean, they had top people. Steve Cram was doing the commentary, and bless him, he was doing his level best to build up these 2/3 empty college stadia in various parts of the United States. But essentially, the racing was great, but then because in order to get the prize money, and there was big prize money, some athletes were getting $1 million if they won the right events, but they had to win a multiplicity of events, and they did a whole big anything you have to explain in detail at the start of each programme is too complicated.
Sure.
Human beings are not built for that
But
sort
it's
of
all
thing.
about visibility, isn't it? And if you haven't got visibility because the commerciality of the proposition doesn't work for the broadcasters, then you're in this eternal cleft position, because it once upon a time it did. Now, we cannot ignore that the rise of certain sports in America, the NFL, and in the UK football has just dwarfed, crushed and buried other sports. And
I may not like it, but I have to admit it, of course.
But then what requires is some real innovation and some real format creation that re-engages the public in such a way, and then gets broadcasting formats that become intriguing to broadcasters, that then monetize the sport, and then you start to get them back into the mainstream.
Do you care a monkey, Simon? I mean, I'm not having you as a representative of the British public, but you personally, do you care about who's a fast runner anymore?
Not as much as I once did, but when I grew up, I'm watching Alan Wells win the gold in Moscow.
And you grew up near what was then the prime site for
which is falling
Crystal
into,
Palace, which is a shame, an absolute shame.
Absolutely. I have to confess, I don't care as much as I once did.
Yeah, okay, I just thought I'd check there. I still do, but I can't find access to the content in the way that suits me now.
Yeah, which then makes you careless by association.
I sit there with the very high-tech television remote control I've got that virtually controls me, thinking I'm just not finding the stuff I want. And come on, all that can be sorted out at the very least. Let me just give you the latest from... should we go and get some more from the cricket? Yes, Sam Allard is watching for talkSPORT. India continued to bat well into the first session.
Yeah, India 302 for 5. England's day down. He started off really well when they picked up the 5th wicket in the second over. Jadeja going for 20. Jofra Archer finding the outside edge though. Since then, this partnership for the 6th wicket is worth 40 runs as Shardul Thakur hits another boundary, driving a wide ball from Ben Stokes through the covers. England thought though the previous ball they got Shardul Thakur, it was a full ball from Ben Stokes that just kicked up off a length. It sounded out. England thought there was a genuine edge. The umpire gave it not out on field. England reviewed immediately. It was a great decision from the umpire because replay showed there was no bat, no glove on it. The noise through to the keeper came off the shoulder. So frustration for England because I think when they got their 5th wicket this morning with the brand new ball, they'd have been confident of getting into India's lower order. But Washington Sundar's got 11, Shardul Thakur's got 39. There's partnership worth 40 runs, and as we approach drinks in the morning session on day 2, India 306 for 5.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. Sam will keep you up to date throughout this programme and beyond here on talkSPORT today. We've still got an hour to go. I can't believe those first 2 hours have flown by. Certainly for me, maybe not for Simon. I hope for you, the listening millions. But the next hour will be devoted to boxing, including, of course, a review of everything that happened before, during and after that world title fight, unification fight for the heavyweight belts, all of them at Wembley at the weekend. Don't worry, you won't have to listen to just me and Simon blathering on about it. We'll be joined by Spencer Oliver and others. You're listening to talkSPORT, and that is the right thing to do.
Andy Farrell has rung the changes for the second Lions test against the Wallabies in Melbourne. Some are forced, others unforced. Bundee Aki comes in at 12 and Hugh Jones remains at 13, but both those decisions are due to injuries.
Sione has a little bit of a tight hamstring there, so that influences that. Gary Ringrose, Hugh comes in. Gary, was actually selected, and unfortunately in training today he's had to pull out. That's unfortunate for Gary.
So what does this tell us about the upcoming test? Well, here's our reporter down under, Alfie Reynolds.
First of all, I think when you look at the bench options, I mentioned Ellis Genge amongst the replacements, Jack Morgan being named there, Owen Farrell coming on, Blair Kinghorn coming on. I think there's a part of it that the Lions had the first test pretty much wrapped up after 50 minutes, but they did drop off in the last 20 of that. So I think Andy Farrell wants more from his bench, wants more of an impact.
Elsewhere, he's got his move to Barcelona, but what will Marcus Rashford do there? Former Barca midfielder Bolo Zenden says it's a crazy good opportunity for someone who tumbled down the levels so quickly at Old Trafford.
If this doesn't ignite the engine again, I don't know what will. So I'm definitely sure that he will give it all. We've seen glimpses of it when he was at Villa. I've also heard things like that he was a professional on and off the pitch, that he was doing his defensive work, that he was, well, living as a pro.
And can England survive another Spanish Inquisition in the Euros final this Sunday? They may have the scars of the World Cup final loss, but as Adrian Durham told us, recent history makes for better reading.
The last two games between England and Spain this year, Spain beat England 2-1 in Barcelona. I was there a month ago. England were 1-up at half-time. It was quite a tight game in the end. A little bit of magic won it for Spain. And before that, England beat Spain 1-0. Jess Park with the only goal at a packed Wembley. So it's been pretty tight in the games. Player for player, you'd say Spain are a lot better. They've got more Ballon d'Or contenders, if you like. But England will feel confident from the performances against Spain.
And make sure you tune in when it might just come home again on Sunday afternoon, live on talkSPORT. And all your transfer news is at talksport.com.
Welcome back to what is normally White and Jordan. Today is Kelly and Jordan, and the boxing hour that we always do on a Thursday as the sport continues to fill up huge amounts of attention in the newspapers and attracting massive audiences to TV and radio. I'm Danny Kelly. Simon Jordan is still here with us, and that music means that we've been joined now for the next 60 minutes by Spencer Oliver. What do you feel, Simon? Sorry, Spencer, when you hear that announcement these days?
I was going to ask you the same thing, so I saw the smile on your face. It was like you was reliving that a little bit there.
No, actually, the bit that got me was you're from Barnet, so I want to know which football team you support.
Well, I was a Barnet boy, wasn't I? So I used to literally live.
You're a Tottenham fan.
But when I was,
so the answer is Tottenham.
No,
good. Well, that is the right answer.
I'm a Tottenham fan, but let me tell you the story just quickly.
Yeah.
So my mum, I was brought up across the road from the old Barnet ground. Do you remember the old Barnet ground?
No.
What do you mean?
What would I ever
Underhill, is it?
Didn't you?
Oh, well, before
yeah,
that.
Underhill, yeah.
Underhill,
yeah. So that's where my mother still lives, so there you go.
Okay. Well, all I remember is that there was, when I was in magazines before I made the elevation to sports broadcasting, there was a guy, EMAP, one of the biggest publishing companies in the country. He worked in the advertising department. He used to come in and say to me, "We sold disc, what can you do about the pagination, all the rest of it?" But I could never take him seriously because I knew that at the weekends he was inside the B suit at Barnet.
Oh no!
He was the Barnet mascot. And he would say to me, "If we can get 200 grand for this double page spread, what do you think about moving out?" And I'm saying, Has the bee suit. That's all you can think of is how is the
and
bee
there
suit.
I was thinking that Simon was inside that suit. There you go.
Yeah, no, Simon's a bit tall for the.
I
For
wouldn't
the
be running.
bee.
Tony Cleanthos I've known for years, and I won't be running around in a bee suit for him anytime soon.
Listen, let's address the not the elephant in the room, but we were all together at Wembley last week in the build-up to the unification fight between Usyk and Daniel Dubois. A fight that's now overshadowed by what happened before, and I guess the fallout afterwards. Spencer, I'm going to give you the chance to come in off your long run-up here. I don't know what you do, and I don't. What professional boxers are going through in the hours before they get into that squared circle that I would never do. Okay, for no amount of money actually. So what did you make? We'll talk about the fight. I really will talk about the fight. What did you make about the preparation that Daniel Dubois had? We talked to him briefly before the match, but that's nothing. It's the hours before the fight that's become the controversy.
Yeah, very unusual. It's the first I've ever heard of it, if I'm totally honest. We had Don Charles in, didn't we, in a week, and Don was saying, look, it was not a party, it was a gathering, and we'd done that for the Anthony Joshua fight, and it worked for us. So I sort of understand it from their side for that, but I think this gathering seemed to be a lot bigger than the one for the Anthony Joshua one. And look, speaking as a fighter or an ex-fighter, that's not ideal preparation. You need focus, tunnel vision. You're going over, your game plan, what can happen in the fight, and certain situations arise, how you correct those.
Can you do that and relax at the same time? I mean, by relax, I don't mean, lay on a chaise longue or something, but you know what I mean, don't you? You've got to keep... It's a tightrope, isn't it?
Absolutely. Listen, what works for some, what doesn't work for others. But look, when you're talking about... There's relaxing and relaxing, isn't there? And I mean, when you're going into a fight of that magnitude, 90,000 people, for the undisputed world heavyweight title, that's not ideal preparation for me. But like I say, Don says that worked before, so they thought that this was going to be good. Daniel's like no other fighter, by the way. Daniel sort of thinks differently, ticks differently. We'll get into it a little bit later. His father is very instrumental in that kid's career. Very instrumental.
Well, look,
influential.
In the interest of balance, as they say on some radio stations, I don't even know what that means. Don Charles, Daniel's trainer, was in the studio this week. Presumably you
with me,
and explained from his point of view what occurred before the fight.
Let's retract. Let's replace the word party with gathering. It was a gathering. Okay. Right. The same gathering we used for the prep on fight day for the AJ fight. A lot was made of the ring walk when Daniel walked out in Wembley, 96,000 people. A lot was made of the
Anthony Joshua fight.
Correct, yeah. And the energy that it was fired up.
It was.
That gathering at the home, the same home, was taken to the dressing room. Some of the Daniel's friends and his father's friends were in the dressing room for the AJ dress for the fight. That energy is what gave birth to the energy that everybody witnessed in the ring walk, and we were victorious on that occasion.
So you tried to replicate it?
Correct. I think you would, put in the same position. If it worked for you the first time, it's highly likely you're going to replicate that. That's merely, there might have been more people granted for this second gathering. Yeah? Mm-hmm. To get more energy. That would be the only thing. I'm a logical man. The only logical sense that why there was more people is to increase the volume, because it's the big, you're going to the AJ fight was big. This is even trumps it. I didn't think that was possible. The young man I saw in the dressing room warmed up. We had more than ample time. It was recorded. A lot of it was recorded, the warm up. And we cheered him up like you do. And he walked out like you do. And I didn't see anything where, he's not on it tonight.
Yeah.
Does that sound like justification after the event?
Well, like I said to you, they do things very, very differently in that camp, and his father's a big part of that. Don Charles wouldn't be in control of gatherings or parties that are going on before that, that's for sure. He's in control of his boxing life and what he's doing in his boxing. He turned up 90 minutes before he was going to make his ring walk. That's not ideal preparation, trust me. Alexander Usyk was there from about 6 o'clock. You know, you need time to get there. You need to walk into the stadium, feel the energy, go through all this stuff. Like I say,
okay, so that's 4 hours. Tell me, you know, for the people listening, how do you what was Usyk doing in those 4 hours that Daniel didn't have the time to do?
Exactly what I was saying. He goes into his dressing room, he feels the dressing room, walks around. You know, it's sort of like you're taking in that moment. You're building up for this big occasion. You know, you're walking out in front of 90,000. You're looking to become undisputed. This is the pinnacle of sport we're talking about here. World heavyweight title champion. You know, this is so much on the line. You know, just financially, legacy, all of that stuff. So you need time to prepare for that. I've done it as a fighter myself. You go in there, you feel the dressing rooms, you take a walk around, you're looking at what's going on, you're looking at the crowd, the atmosphere, the feeling. You need all of that, you know, and then you've got to go back and you'll go over stuff. You'll be sitting there with your trainer talking over stuff. Like, it's all about preparation. Like, if you're coming into work today, Danny, and you come in and you walk in...
Straight out onto the thin ice now, here we go.
Yeah, no, but like, if you walk in and you walk in, let's just say like 10, 15 minutes before you're going on air, you're all a little bit flustered, aren't you? This guy's different. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's on the ball, like, unbelievable. But what I'm saying is you're a little bit flustered because of preparation is key in everything. You know, and I think
there must be a reason why the world's best heavyweights feels the necessity to be there.
There's the nail and bang on the head.
And the same argument was run. I mean, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that Alexander Usyk is the best heavyweight in the world by a country mile.
Yeah.
And none of this really detracts from the brilliance that he brought into the ring.
Mm-hmm.
What it does, it makes you question.
Well, we're going to talk about the fight in the next section.
Yeah, about the validity of some of the thinking. I mean, Anthony Joshua, a lot was made of Anthony Joshua's getting late to the arena and his lack of feeling about the preparation was right. It cannot be good for a fighter to be distracted by a Mardi Gras going on in his house. It cannot be.
So, for a simple thing, Spencer, how long does it take to get your hands wrapped for a top fight?
Great question, and I'm glad you've asked me that question because that's
where the big money comes this way.
Absolutely, listen, that can take up to, if you're getting your hands right and they don't feel right, you want to put your gloves on, you try your gloves, you go, I don't like this, it doesn't feel right, you might have to re-wrap them again. That can take 45 minutes to an hour to wrap your hands. What I'm saying is, so if you're burning into your 90 minutes, you turn up to the stadium 90 minutes before, yeah, and then you've got to get to your dressing room, you've got to go out there, you've got to have that feeling. Now all of a sudden we've got 60 minutes, so how do you warm up?
You have to warm up then.
The warming up's going to take you at least half an hour. Preparation.
People think they do the ring walk and then you start the boxing. That's nonsense. You couldn't do it at that level.
I also think, and we think this, and we step through this particular narrative very carefully, I think the neurological programming of Daniel Dubois is very different to it is to other fighters.
Correct.
And I think walking into an auditorium where you want an entourage that, by the way, it was a party, not a gathering. Don Charles is being very diplomatic because he probably has to be.
Sure.
And I understand the reasons why. But when you've got an entourage...
I've seen the film. I've been to less parties than that.
You can't have a fighter going into an auditorium with an entourage coming in behind him and then being pulled back into the middle of this entourage because the father is suggesting that if he doesn't let the entourage in, he's not going to fight. That sort of stuff can't be going on. It's a distraction, specifically for someone programmed the way Daniel is. Now, none of this, I think, really means that Daniel Dubois would have won this fight, but it provides an interest. And I was the one that brought the story to the fore because I was the one that was privy to certain information. But at no point should any of this take away from the excellence of Alexander Usyk.
And that's what we'll discuss next here on Kelly and Jordan on talkSPORT, the actual fight itself. Because, of course, lots of people's preparations haven't been perfect, but they still have to go into the ring. And we'll talk about another sensational performance by a man who, well, all the boxing experts I talked to at Wembley, they're all saying, well, it can't go on forever and ever, can it? Of course, it can't. I know that. It can't. But it doesn't show much sign of waning just yet. That's next here on talkSPORT. Spencer Oliver still with us thankfully, for the next 45 minutes or so here on Jordan and Kelly on talkSPORT. First, though, we should get back to Old Trafford and to the cricket. Here's Sam Ellard.
India 312 for 5, the 6-wicket partnership worth 46 runs. Shardul Thakur has 39. Washington Sundar's got 17, but a run-out chance just now for England. Thakur flicking a full ball from Stokes to mid-on. Washington went for the run, was sent back. He went straight to Cos, who threw it on striker's end, missed the stumps, but if he hit, he would have been out. It's been a interesting morning of cricket. The ball's done plenty more than it did yesterday. Definitely a little bit of nip and seam, and India have done a good job to only lose 1 wicket. That was Ravi Jadeja. Jofra Archer getting him out. We've seen a change of bowling from both ends. Stokes and Cars have replaced Archer and Wokes, but Thakur's got 39. Sundar in at 8 has got 17. He started his first-class career opening the batting and has got 2 first-class hundreds, so he can bat. And these two frustrating England at the moment. India 312 for 5.
Always ready for November.
Thank you very much indeed, Sam. Now, Spencer, I rarely get a chance to show off on the radio, so here. Oh, Simon's looking like I'm all showing off. Listen, earlier on we were speaking to Eric Bilderman about the situation where Lyon are taking legal action to try and get out of that contract they signed with Nottingham Forest to sign the goalkeeper Matt Turner. And I suggested that Turner was being brought in there not as a second-choice goalkeeper, but because Lyon, strapped for cash, would want to get rid of Lucas Perry, their brilliant goalkeeper, Brazilian, and just perfect for the Premier League because he's huge. Here's some breaking news for you. Olympic Lyonnais goalkeeper Lucas Perry, who has 3 years left in his contract, is expected to join Leeds for 16 million euros initially. Perry is due to fly in this afternoon to Paderborn, Germany, where Leeds are currently on a training camp. So that makes perfect sense to me. And I presume that the problem with Turner will go away as well. Yeah. Meanwhile, I should tell you this, that Manchester United have made fresh contact with Aston Villa for Ollie Watkins. talkSPORT understands the Red Devils identified Watkins as a target in their search for a new number 9, but any move is likely to depend on selling players first. Villa, and this is interesting, who have themselves shown interest in Alejandro Garnacho, value Watkins at £60 million. Whoa. Okay, thank you very much. All of that from this. Listen, we'll get on to some of all the controversies, but overall the fight. Usyk dominated, is that fair to say, Spencer? Am I using the right language in boxing terms? There was only ever one winner from the start. I couldn't see anything else from just watching the fight.
Absolutely, yeah, he dominated. That's a fair assessment. I think that what we recognised was that Daniel just wasn't good enough, and we talked about all this stuff going on in the background, you know, the build up to the fight, etc.,
sure, but then the bell goes,
and that doesn't help. Of course, it doesn't. When the bell goes, you know, you got to go out there and you deliver like that, you know, and you soon recognised from the opening bell, I think it's fair to say so. I mean, as soon as Usyk started getting that jab together, he was controlling the space. You know, he was upping the tempo when he wanted to up the tempo. He was going on the back foot when he wanted to go on the back foot. There was a lot of talk about, you know, that Daniel pushing him back early on and everything else. But even on the back foot, Alexander Usyk was in control. He was setting traps. You know, this guy went to another level. It's one of the career best performances. I know a lot of people talking about a poor performance by Daniel Dubois, but that was just the brilliance of Alexander Usyk. This guy is, you know, I think he'll go down as an all-time great for sure.
I mean, twice undisputed. Now, of course, it depends on the era you're doing that in.
3-time undisputed, if you include the cruiserweight
title. Yeah, I mean, I think his place in the pantheon is already pretty well established. And you know, they can't find anybody to not just to beat him, but really to compete with him. There being one or two. Listen, of course, because of things that have happened in previous fights with Daniel Dubois, then came the accusation, if that's the right word, or certainly the inference that he had quit. There's no other way of putting it. For instance, here's Fabio Wardley Wardley, I keep calling him that, disagreeing with that assessment on Drive earlier.
I think there can be a level of realisation of I'm beaten here. He has my number. He has me figured out. The plan A is not working. Plan B and C isn't working. And don't get me wrong, some fighters choose to dig down and try and just swing for the fences and see if something comes off, and other fighters sit there and think, you know what, someone like Daniel as well, young, still got a lot of talent, a lot ahead of him, just goes, you know what, tonight's not my night, this isn't my fight, this is not the one for me. almost not save myself for another day, not like he was in a grueling 12-round war, but he just goes, you know what, maybe this is not the one, go back to the drawing board and I'll restart from there. So I wouldn't like to put the word quit on him.
Yeah, I think it's really cruel to say to boxers that they quit. That's far too much, because they got in there in the first place. What did you make of the end of the fight, Simon? Because, you know, as Fabio was saying there, you can look to the future.
Well, it's interesting that Fabio characterises it that way, because we're talking about his whole assessment of the fight, about how it cannot be your night. You mean like you, Fabio, when you were fighting Justice Hooney 6 weeks ago, and it looked like it was not going to be your night at all when a punch from the gods came in and dealt with a fight that was going completely against you. I don't think that you can save yourself for another night when you're fighting for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world, with all the belts on offer in the biggest fight in British boxing and the biggest fight in British boxing history. I don't think you can. It's a difficult one to call somebody a quitter. I think Daniel is programmed to accept the outcome in a different way than other fighters that might have bitten more down on their gum should have done.
Yeah, and I think that, look, they're gladiatorial fighters. When you get in there at any sort of level, like the word quitter and swallowed it, I don't like that, because different fighters have different pain thresholds. And like Simon said there, you know, different fighters, like Cole Frotch is a great example as well, where they don't lose spirit, they don't lose heart, and they stick in there and they do that. But other fighters are different. They're more sensitive. They're, you know, and it's not about swallowing it. I think it was about, you know, we're talking about the first 4 rounds there, where Alexander Usyk was just chipping away and he was getting more and more success, and Daniel recognised that he just weren't good enough, and he was at that stage. He got knocked down the first time, and the second time was a heavy knockdown, and he's down there. And then the question is, could he have got up? Yeah, of course he could have probably got up, because he got up after the 10 count, and he walked straight over to his corner. But he probably recognised at that stage, I'm not good enough. I'm just going to get up, and it's only going to go one way. So I totally understand it, but the word swallowed and quit is a wrong word to use, I think, because these guys are gladiatorial and they get in there and they give it their all. And Daniel done it, and it just wasn't good enough.
I mean, every person is different, but you, in moments of adversity, what goes through? Does anything go through your mind, Spencer, or is it just pure instinct? Whether you're going to keep going or you're going to say, I'm losing this fight. I mean, try and think back into your own time in that ring.
I'm already there. I totally understand it. There's, like I say, different fighters have got different pain thresholds, and different fighters have got different mental approaches about it. Like, so I'm the type of fighter that go, you got to pin me down to the floor to get me out there, and effectively that's what happened. I got carried out, and I ended up in a 2-week coma, because that's where I was at, and that was like sort of my mindset.
Welcome back, Spencer.
Absolutely, but what I'm saying is, different fighters they think differently, and I think so. That's where you're at with it. But you go, when you got the undisputed world heavyweight title on the line, you know, for me, my mindset is like, I'm getting up and I'm going to give it another go, because one shot can turn it around, and that's sort of the way that you think. But
I also think, though, to assess the fight in the briefest of times, I think that Daniel's psychological approach to the fight was wrong in the first. I liked him in the first round. I actually thought the first round, up until the point he gets Usyk in the corner and does nothing with him, which is the one place that you want Alexander Usyk. The one place that Alexander Usyk doesn't go is get himself put in a corner, and Daniel didn't let his hands go. And from that moment, I felt worried for Daniel, because I thought the very thing that Daniel was going to do was prepared to take a risk and prepared to let his hands go, because the one way he could win that fight was doing that, and he didn't want to. And that told me something, and that might be to do with the preparation, which is why he and I made such a song and dance and a dog and pony show about why he wasn't prepared for this fight in the right way. But part of me, and it's not my right to say it, but I'm relatively bold and stupid in equal measure, I do think there is an element of a gag reflex in Daniel that enabled him to prepare to accept the defeat. Now, it isn't Roberto Duran against Sugar Ray Leonard. We know that. And it isn't potentially Ben Whittaker against Liam Cameron. But there is a kind of fighter that doesn't know he's beaten. And Daniel, I felt that Daniel was prepared to accept the defeat.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, that's a great assessment, and I think that, look, when you're looking at this and you're looking at that side of it, you go, like, Don Charles, by the way, had a game plan. I knew that game plan before they went in there, because I was in the gym in the weeks build up to that.
Right.
And they said, listen, that's right. And I said to Simon, if they can implement this game plan in there, we've got a real fight, because they knew where it went right and wrong. When the bell rings, Don Charles is no longer a part of that, right? So Don Charles is a great fight trainer, and he had a great game plan. Daniel went in there, and Simon's right. The game plan was working. He got him backed up. He got him where he needs to be. He imposed his physical strength. Lennox Lewis talks about that as well. He said, when I boxed Evander Holyfield, I needed to impose my physical strength, my attributes, and then let my hands go when he was punching. Daniel done all of that, and then the final bit, the final hurdle, he never let his hands go. Why not? Because he didn't have confidence in his own ability. And I think that goes back to maybe revert back to what you know, back from the last fight. And he got him there, and you go, right, Daniel, let's go. Let your hands go. And he didn't do it.
Even if you take one on the way in, you signal intent.
Yeah.
You signal that you mean what you said you were going to do, and this is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, we'll be bringing you more on the boxing very, very soon, plus a big breaking story from the world of football. So huge that I haven't even been told what it is yet. But let's get back to Old Trafford. There's been a wicket in the cricket. Sam Allard.
India 314 for 6. Ben Stokes has the wicket of Shardul Thakur, a full ball. The Shardul Thakur looked to drive through the covers, took a thick outside edge. Ben Duckett taking a really good catch at gully, diving to his left-hand side. Important runs from Thakur down the order. He's made 41. Big incident yesterday was when Rishabh Pant got hit on the boot from Chris Wokes, a Yorker ball. He was in real pain, real agony. Couldn't even walk off the field. He had a big swelling on his foot. There was some talk he might not play again in this series, but he's coming back out to bat, limping onto the pitch at Old Trafford. So he's going to resume his innings on 37. He's quite an aggressive cricketer anyway, doesn't like running too much, but my guess here is he's literally going to try and stand and deliver. Fair play to Rishabh Pant, coming back out to bat on 37. Washington Sundar's got 17. India 314 for 6.
Thank you very much, Sam Allard. Of course, Rishabh Pant has come out to bat on one leg, because that's what Rishabh is like. This big news story breaking from the world of football. I'll trade it for you now. Alexander Isak, according to at least one reputable source, has asked to leave Newcastle.
Andy Farrell has rung the changes for the second Lions test against the Wallabies in Melbourne. Some are forced, others unforced.
Sione has a little bit of a tight hamstring there, so that influences that. Gary Ringrose, Hugh comes in. Gary, was actually selected, and unfortunately in training, he's had to pull out.
So what does this tell us about the upcoming test? Well, here's our reporter down under, Alfie Reynolds.
The Lions had the first test pretty much wrapped up after 50 minutes, but they did drop off in the last 20 of that. So I think Andy Farrell wants more from his bench, wants more of an impact.
Elsewhere, he's got his move to Barcelona, but what will Marcus Rashford do there? Former Barca midfielder Bolo Zenden says it's a crazy good opportunity for someone who tumbled down the levels so quickly at Old Trafford.
If this doesn't ignite the engine again, I don't know what will. So I'm definitely sure that he will give it all.
And can England survive another Spanish Inquisition in the Euros final this Sunday? They may have the scars of the World Cup final loss, but as Adrian Durham told us, recent history makes for better reading.
The last two games between England and Spain this year, Spain beat England 2-1 in Barcelona. I was there a month ago. England were 1-up at half-time. It was quite a tight game in the end. A little bit of magic won it for Spain. And before that, England beat Spain 1-0. Jess Park with the only goal at a packed Wembley. So it's been pretty tight in the games.
And all your transfer news is at talksport.com.
Yeah, just to reiterate what you were hearing in the sports news there here on talkSPORT, and this is, you have to be careful how you explain all this. Alexander Isak has told Newcastle he wants to explore a transfer away. Isak has told Newcastle exactly what that says. The striker has not travelled with the squad to their pre-season tour of the Far East after reporting a thigh injury earlier in the week. However, the Mail was revealing that the club's hierarchy are aware of Isak's wish to consider his options this summer. Now, look, we'll be trying to dig down into this and get more and more as the afternoon unfolds here on talkSPORT. Your initial reaction, Simon?
Disappointing for Newcastle fans if it has legs.
Of course.
I'm not surprised. I said it about 2 or 3 months ago when everyone was talking about the undoubted love that Isak will have for the club not leaving. I said, wait and see. Wait and see if a legacy club comes in and see what they're prepared to do and how this will turn the mind of a player, irrespective of how committed he seems right now. So I'm not surprised. It's a difficult one if it's true. The club have got to find a resolution to it, because you can't have a player that you can make stay. You can make him stay. But the only thing I would say is if he is going to go, it has to be on Newcastle's terms, as best as it can be. And someone's got to pay the ransom that Newcastle rightly are entitled to, because they're the ones that found him, they're the ones that put him in, and they're the one that gave us the vision.
And presumably that's a British record fee north of what to Liverpool play for Verts.
I mean, ultimately you think those sort of things should be reserved for players that have actually won things, significant things. But he's playing in a landscape where Jack Grealish was at Aston Villa, went for 100 million quid. This is a very rare breed. This is a superstar centre forward, and they're rare as hen's teeth, aren't they?
I think if he does go, it'll have to be a British record fee. Absolutely.
Yeah. Then we'll see how big people's balls are and their checkbooks are.
Oh, yeah. It's one thing where they're talking to the player. Yeah, talk is cheap, isn't it?
Write a check out.
Centre forwards of that standard are not so cheap.
Yeah, write a check out, and it all has to clear, not be on the drip. Right?
Yeah, but clear the check, and then he gets on the train, or a helicopter, wherever it's going to be. Here's a question for you. Following our discussion of just how superior Usyk was to Daniel Dubois, I'm going to ask you, obviously, what's next for Daniel Dubois, but Spencer Oliver. An equally, I think, pertinent question is, what's next for Alexander Usyk? Because they're running out of people to put in front of him for the second time.
Well, they've run out of people to put in front of him, haven't they? Because everyone they put in front of him, every leading contender, he's beaten twice. So
it's extraordinary, isn't it?
So you go, where does this guy now find the motivation to continue boxing? Because he could sail off into the sunset and he'll go down in history as one of, if not the best, to ever do it.
I guess the counter-argument to that is if he's still in the condition he appeared to be in northwest London recently, he can probably put another 150 million pounds in his bank with 2 or 3 big fights.
I totally agree with that, but at the risk of risking your legacy and your place in history, and you go like, how much money do you need? And I think, look, where Alexander Usyk finds a motivation, and he talked about this through the week actually, is through his people, through what his country's going through, giving them hope, leadership and all that sort of stuff. And I understand that, he's a man, like, he's something much bigger outside the box. And that's what makes him so special. When we talk about Muhammad Ali and how good he was, and a lot of fighters around that era, I think we heard George Foreman saying it, and we heard Joe Frazier saying it, saying he wasn't the greatest to ever box in the ring, but he was the greatest sportsman, the greatest person because of what he stood up outside the ring.
Sure.
Alexander's sort of gone down that road. And how ironic, by the way, that Alexander Usyk and Muhammad Ali were both born on January the 17th. They were both the same height. They had both the same reach, and they both achieved what they've achieved.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you asked Alexander Usyk, do you want to be a representative for your country's travails? Of course, before the war, he just said no, but because who wants to be carrying around that with you? But now, whether he likes it or not, he is very much that. Incidentally, I noticed how very polite, but also very stern the security were at Wembley the other day, because of course Usyk is the second most important Ukrainian person on the planet. They were being very, very careful about him.
It'd be fascinating to see where the money is for these fights, because the scale of earnings from the Dubois fight would have been nowhere near what they've earned previously, because the Saudis weren't at the table. You look at the fights that are there, where are they going to be? I mean, Joe Parker may get his shot, possibly not, because he'll vacate the WBO. But you say, he can 2 or 3 fights and he can make another 150 million quid. I'm not sure that. I'm not sure that's right.
And I think also at this stage of his career, because he's in the twilight of his career, he's 38 years of age, and there will be wear and tear there. At some point he's going to look at that and go,
even if he's not, it's inspiring, isn't it?
Yes, it's all the training that goes into that, the training camps, etc. So the fighting really is the easy part. To what you put your body, the grueling part you put your body through in the build up to that, because the hard work is done before the first bell rings. Yeah, that 45 minutes that you're in the ring, or the 36 minutes of fighting that you're in the ring, you look at that and go, yeah, that is difficult and it's grueling. But what you go through before that, trust me, with the early morning runs and the sparring and all that, that's where the wear and tear is done. So for me, I think Usyk is 1 and out. He's going to go one more and he'll be done, that's for sure.
Who the hell is that going to be?
Well, me and Simon had the guy that we would like to see on, and I think it's the guy that deserves the opportunity, and that's Joseph Parker. I think he's rebuilt. He's a former world champion, and he deserves that opportunity, because he's in that. We were talking about this, Simon, weren't we? He's in that no man's land at the moment where he doesn't even know what's going on. He's come off the victory over Deontay Wilder and Zhele Zhang, the two danger men of the division. He's won both of those. He's put himself in the position. And when we asked him the question on Talk Boxing, the answer was, I really don't know what's happening. Yeah. And he is the WBO interim world champion, so that's next in line,
the thing for him is that he's in the right place with Frank. Yeah. And Frank Warren engineers best outcomes.
I agree.
Look at Anthony Yard getting another world title shot. Yeah. Or it's not a world title shot, but world title shot, isn't he, against Benavidez? Yeah. So you look at that and Frank will orchestrate an outcome. But Joseph Parker is an unfortunate circumstance, because he was supposed to fight Daniel Dubois in January, doesn't fight Daniel Dubois, ends up fighting Martin Bacoli, which advanced him nowhere, and sits in limbo waiting for an opportunity.
Well, here's the interesting one for me, because of the situation of these belts and whether they'll fragment or not. Now, next in line for the WBO title is Joseph Parker. Yeah. We believe that title may become vacant.
For the IBF.
So Derek Chisora is in line for the IBF. But talking about this...
for the WBC.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you got Cabiel there for the WBC as well, who's the interim champion. So where I'm going with this, Danny, is you go... Moses Atoma is number 1 WBO there as well. This is the new kid on the block, the hot shot. We could find ourselves in a situation, and I don't know where Frank would be on this one, whether he'd feel that it's time for Moses to go or not, because we know how great this kid's going to be, and Frank is the best at engineering those and directing them and taking the right fights at the right time. But we could find ourselves in a situation where we get Joseph Parker for Moses Atoma for the vacant title, which would be absolutely insane.
The impression that Frank might quite fancy that.
Yeah,
yeah. Meanwhile, Daniel Dubois, there's a whole raft of people. AJ is one of them. Tyson Fury's another. He will come back, I presume, after he's finished filming his latest TV Netflix series. Yeah. Look, this is not the bum of the month club, but we're building up huge fights here, possibly taking place in football stadiums. between, let's call it what it is, it's the victims of Usyk club. Why do people, help me with this, why do people still want to see these people fight each other?
I'll tell you why, because we are very, very blessed, right? When we look back on this, when we're going to call these the good old days, in 10, 15 years' time, we can remember the good old days when the best fought the best, and we never had that for years.
Sure.
You know, you speak to Frank Warren, you speak to Eddie Hearn, and them guys, the politics of boxing didn't allow those to get the big fights on, and we missed certain fights of certain eras. We're not getting that now with the investment of Saudi Arabia and Riyadh season and all that, you know, I think, and the ring, you know, we are now getting these fights. So everyone is fighting everyone. And like you talk about, you know, a lot of people saying, oh, what, it's a battle of the losers club. No, we're talking about one guy of brilliance that we're talking about, not just the best of this generation, but the best of all time. Alexander Usyk now has put himself in that argument, Simon, where you go, was he better than Muhammad Ali? Was he better than George Foreman? Like, he has put himself in that argument.
In such a rarefied air at this moment in time. It's like I went down to Ipswich to watch Fabio fight Justice Hooney in a packed Ipswich Town stadium. And they're at this level now. You've got fighters, the intrigue and the energy and the juice around boxing is ultimately because Frank Warren opened the door to Saudi and to Turkey Al Sheikh. Everyone's walked through it. It's raised the level. It'll come back down again economically because it can't sustain without Saudi money. It'll find its own level again. But the levels are there. And now the interesting thing for Daniel Dubois, to answer your question, is he can't drop down to fight, with respect, Fabio Wardley or other fighters that are at British level aspiring to go up to a higher level. He probably going to have to go in there with another live one inside the top 10, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know that Fabio's inside the top 10, but I'm talking about someone like a Caballel or someone of that nature.
Yeah, like that's where you would suspect he goes. And it's interesting, actually, Big Tyson Fury, who will be coming back in 2026, he says, you know, I'd welcome a fight with Daniel Dubois. I'd actually have him up here training with me. But, you know, that's the sort of fight now where you go, Simon's right with what he says. Daniel Dubois now is in his prime. He is a former world champion. He's at elite level. He's 27 years of age. And what we saw from the defeat from Usyk the first time is the kid did go back to the drawing board, worked very well, come back bigger, better, stronger. Can he do it again? Sometimes these losses can mould a fighter.
Sure.
And you go, what about a fight with someone like him and Tyson Fury? That is a fight that is sell, because we're talking about fights here now that are commercially.
Yes.
You know, we're talking about that sort of revenue. They have to be commercially right. And I think that sort of fight, you know, we can see something like that. Or even with a rematch with Anthony Joshua, something like that to get yourself in line for a shot again. I think that, Simon, that's where we can sit.
Listen, let's draw the curtain down for this show, at least, on everything that went on at Wembley, because I want to talk a little bit about Eubank and Ben, and particularly I want to pay tribute to Josh Taylor, who's announced his retirement. A person who I don't think ever got the credit because of the way boxing was hidden in those days for what he achieved. We'll do that in the final 15 minutes of today's edition of White and Jordan with me, Danny Kelly. First, we should get back to Old Trafford and the cricket. Sam Ellard.
India 320 for 6. Lots happening in this morning session at Old Trafford. India resuming 264 for 4. England with an early wicket. Second over of the day. Jadeja going for 20. England then had to wait an hour and a half for their next wicket. Shardul Thakur fighting hard for 41. I think India have done well only to lose 2 wickets in this morning session. Overcast conditions, gloomy, floodlights are on. Been plenty of seam and movement for England's bowlers. Washington Sundar not out on 20. And Rishabh Pant, who took that nasty blow to the foot yesterday, is back out batting. He's a real fighter. He's taken a couple of singles, hobbling towards the other end. I don't think he'll want to deal with many singles in this innings. He resumes on 39. Washington's got 20. We've got 10 minutes to go until the lunch break here on day 2 at Old Trafford. A lot's going on, lots happening. Floodlights are on, murky conditions. India 321 for 6.
Yes, thank you very much indeed to Sam. He'll keep you across everything that's happening in the cricket throughout the day. Remember, you can hear talkSPORT's commentary on the cricket as well in various platforms. I really enjoyed it as I was driving up to the airport to come and do this show today. I recommend it to you. Next, we'll be talking about Alexander Isak, Eubank against Ben, and Josh Taylor. That's all coming up in the final few minutes of White and Jordan, as I must learn to call it properly here on talkSPORT. Yes, still a great deal to get through and about 10 minutes to do it. First of all, Simon, of course, immediately the news of Alexander Isak asking to leave Newcastle becomes known. The next story that comes up is that Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia are prepared to offer £130 million for him. It's far too early for Alexander. I mean, but the world is changing. The world is changing.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, obviously, people were talking about the moment this team beat Man City as the lightning rod for proving the principle that Saudi Arabian football was at a higher level, and Ronaldo popped up with his two penneth and whatever else, and then they routinely got knocked out in the next game by Fluminense. I would hope that he plays for a legacy football club. If he's going to leave a brilliant football club like Newcastle that have the right really to keep him because they've got him left on a 3-year contract, it needs to be for a blue chip legacy-based football club.
Yeah, back to the boxing. This Saturday sees a double header from both sides of the Atlantic with British titles on the line as Ryan Garner, who we'll hear from in a little while, takes on Reece Bellotti. That's live from Bournemouth. And undisputed heavyweight champion Claressa Shields will defend her titles against two-weight champion Lanny Daniels in Detroit, live only on DAZN. Sign up to at DAZN.com/boxing.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Buy now at DAZN.com/boxing.
And we'll hear from Ryan Garner, who faces Reece Bellotti in Bournemouth in just a few minutes' time. But I wanted to take just a couple of minutes out here as Josh Taylor has the former undisputed world champion has said he's sadly necessary to announce his retirement on medical advice due to an ongoing eye injury. Just wanted to mention this because at the time, and we all see where boxing has gone to, but the time when Josh was taking on the very, very best in the world and making himself a great boxer, he was almost invisible, really invisible.
Yeah, it's a shame. He just missed that, didn't he? It was just on the sort of like the crossover period, if you like. And Josh Taylor, he achieved more than most fighters have ever done. The undisputed super lightweight champion, going over to America, beating Carlos Ramirez against all the odds, and some of the great victories Regis Prograis, which, by the way, that was August 2019 at the O2 Arena. What an incredible fight! One of the best fights I'd witnessed live, actually. If you're looking for, it tick all the boxes with the skill set and the heart, the grit, the determination, the courage of both of these characters, both of them showed. Josh Taylor will go down as one of the greatest fighters that we've produced, and maybe never got the accolades that he should have.
That's right.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to hear someone say, because otherwise people come and go out of this place without recognition. Now, as I say, Bournemouth at the weekend, a super featherweight showdown with European title and WBC international belt both on the line. Reece Bellotti will be in one corner, in the other Ryan Garner, and Ryan joins us now on the line. Good afternoon, Ryan.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Really, really good. Great to talk to you, but I'll let the questions come from Spencer because he's all across this fight.
Yeah, Ryan, how are you, my friend? Listen, I just want to go straight into it and just talk about, some of the recent victories that you've had. Jimenez last time out for the European title. What a great performance that was. And it's a great opportunity for you, isn't it, going in here against the in-form Reece Bellotti?
Oh, it's a massive, massive opportunity. Do you know what I mean? Not many people get to fight for one of these titles, let alone fight for all three, the British, Commonwealth and European. So when I come through this Saturday night, the only thing next is world titles. So
absolutely. Absolutely, against all the odds, by the way, as well. That you've done that, you've sort of come up sort of out of nowhere, and you just, you've been put in there. You've been sort of like against the odds, and you come through every single time. And you've developed as a fighter. But Reece Bellotti, I just want to talk a little bit about him, your opponent, for people that won't know him. You look back to 2018, to that period, 2018 to 2021. He lost 4 of 5 fights there. It looked like his career was over. And now at the ripe old age of 34, he's had 6 wins on the bounce, and he's coming out of nowhere. Michael Gomez Jr. last time out, he won that in 7 rounds, and he's in the form of his life. And like you say, there's a lot on the line here for both of you guys.
Yeah, like I say, he's getting older, so a lot on the line. Like potentially of where he's older now, it might be the end for him if I beat him. And for me, obviously, I've got ambitions, I've got aims, so it could all pull that to a stop. Do you know what I mean? If I lose this Saturday, but I think with each fight, I'm getting better and better, mate. I think every time with every camp, like each fight, I've showed a little bit different stuff, and I've improved with each fight. And I think the same is going to happen this weekend. I feel like I've got better since that last fight again, and I just feel like I'm going to take it to another level again.
Ryan, listen, thank you for joining us, and as I always say to every boxer, good luck on Saturday. And I mean for both of them.
Be a great fight. Be a good fight.
And of course, thank you very much to Ryan Garner for joining us here on talkSPORT. As I say, takes on Reece Bellotti in Bournemouth at the weekend. Thank you, Spencer Oliver, for the last 40, 45, 50, 60 minutes, because I don't think we could have done without you. Thank you. And can you explain, other than my magnetic personality, why you're doing your first ever Friday show?
There are no other reasons.
So tomorrow here again, 10 o'clock till 1, Kelly and Jordan and Kelly. They said it couldn't be done, and yet somehow, perhaps from Saudi Arabia, the money has been found. We'll join us again tomorrow at 10 o'clock for more of the same.